Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Live action.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, friends and neighbors. Time once again for the Cowboys of the Osage podcast with your host, Jimbo Snively and Cody Garnett. Now let's sing a little bit about it. Cowboys of the Osage, riding once again. Always got some time for a friend. And here they are, the Cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, and now Saucy Calf, traditional Native American food, all located right here in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me, Mr. Rodeo Historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Good morning, Jimbo. Who are we talking to today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's another great day in Osage, man. And Cody, we got all the way from California, Mr. Bobby McLaughlin. And Bobby is a Hollywood stuntman. He was a bull rider, bulldogger, and one of the top Hollywood stuntmen for years in California.
BS, or you forgot to add
Yeah,
that.
well, he's got a little of that in, but don't we all? And anyway, and he also happened to be the little brother of Don McLaughlin, who 8-time world champion, 5-time steer roping, or calf roping champion, 3-time steer roping champion. And we all know Don. He's well known in Pawhuska. He roped into Ben Johnson forever, and he roped at the national finals here at least 3 times, I think. And but anyway, Bobby's got a lot of stories. He's done a lot, seen a lot, and like I say, he came all the way from California to do a podcast with us. So we really appreciate that. And also sitting in, she's not going to sit in with us, but Sandy McLaughlin, Don's widow. She was married to Don for 19 years, and she came with him or met us here, and she's told us some good stories too. So we got a lot to talk about today. Bobby, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Wow.
I'm enjoying myself already.
Yeah.
We're just starting.
Yeah, just starting. Where'd you grow up at, Bobby?
I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah.
I was born in Lake Worth, Texas.
Yeah.
My dad was, when I was born, he was chief of police in Sampson Park, Texas. Yeah. And I argued with my sister forever about whose name was on whose birth certificate, because my dad worked for Gene Autry before he became chief of police. And I thought his name was on my birth certificate, but it's not on mine. It's on my sister's. And she was like 10 years old, I think, when he worked for Gene Autry.
Yeah. Okay. When did you meet your brother Don and Gene?
Well, I didn't even know I had brothers. Like I said, my dad died when I was 6 months old. And the stepdad that my mother had married, I thought he was my dad. Right. And then one day she told me, she said, you know, son, you have brothers that are champion cowboys. And I said, I do? She said, yeah, you got champion cowboys. So I got on my Stingray and I rode over to the Fort Worth Fat Stock Show. And I went to looking for my brothers. And I don't know how many cowboys I asked, and I couldn't find them. And then finally I was just about wore out from asking everybody, and I'm sure they were wore out telling me that they're around here somewhere. And I walked up to these 2 guys, and they started talking to me, and I was asking them the same questions. I'm looking for Don and Gene McLaughlin. Do you happen to know them? And they said, well, you're standing right here with the both of us. And that's how I met my brothers, my brother Don and my brother Gene. And then my other brother Lee, he took me to California right out of high school. I worked for him in the summers. Him and Lauren Green were partners. They had Thoroughbred Racehorse Ranch. And because he worked on Bonanza for like 14 years, my brother Lee.
Did he double hoss or anything? He was a big guy, wasn't he?
A couple times, but mainly he did bit parts on it.
Really?
Yeah, he worked on it. Him and Gene both worked on it for like 14 years.
Yeah.
Lauren Green, for everybody who don't know, he was Pa Cartwright. Was that what he went
Ben
by?
Cartwright.
Ben
Ben,
Cartwright,
Ben.
yeah.
Ben
The
Well,
dad.
you're
Cartwright.
showing your age, Paul
Well,
Cartwright.
Well, it's the dad, right?
Well, I know, but nobody called him Paul.
Haas did.
Hey,
Haas called him Paul all the time.
yes, he did. You're absolutely right. He
They sure did.
But anyway. So, what'd you do in Fort Worth before you went to California?
Well, I went to school there and I rode bulls. I was
so you got in the rodeo world a little bit.
Well, it was after I met my brothers. I
had to.
try to be a cowboy, and the cheapest way to get started was $11 bull rope and a pair of cow petty spurs, and I couldn't ride nothing, But I tried, and then one summer I went out to work for my brother Lee and Lauren on the ranch there, and he said, "You're going to your brother Don's and learn how to rope calves." So that was a big deal for me. And he said, "You better cut off all that old long hair before you go up there." He said, your brother don't like that long
Was that when he lived in
Yes,
Fort Collins?
Fort Collins, yes, sir. And so I went up there and I got my hair cut real short. And I went up there and I didn't work for Lee and Lauren that year, the whole summer. I was helping my brother Don up there. He had put on 2 roping schools for guys and 1 roping school for girls. So I stayed in the bunkhouse when the guys were all there. And then come time for the girls' roping school, he said, "Little brother," he said, "you need to move your stuff onto the house." And I said, "You mean I can't stay out there with the girls?" He said, "I don't think so, little brother. You better move your stuff to the house." But yeah, I went to that school. He said, he was telling everybody, he said, "It's the first time I ever seen my little brother run down a rope." Of course, brother Gene had already been teaching me in California for, a couple of summers. I got to go to a few rodeos and made the finals out there in '74. Won the bull riding, won 6th in the calf rope and 9th in the all around, and I thought I would never see a poor day again. But boy, was I wrong riding them bulls.
Right.
Me and Jimbo went on the motto: once they get too big to rope, we eat them instead of ride them.
Oh, that's a good.
I think
motto.
Don might have went on that
Well,
motto.
I do. I'm on it now.
Yeah.
Been on it for a while.
A lot of people might not know, but Don and Gene started out as trick ropers as little bitty boys, didn't they?
Yes, sir. They were 3 and 5 years old, I think.
Yeah.
And like I say, they trick roped at the Fort Worth Fat Stock Show. It was called the Fat Stock Show back in 1936 and 1938.
But they did it at Madison Square Garden, too,
Yes.
didn't they?
Oh,
Boston
yes.
Garden
Yeah,
and all
they,
those places back east. They were from back, weren't they from Pennsylvania or something?
Yes, Don
Yeah.
was. Yeah, well, they all were.
Yeah.
That's and then he moved to Fort Worth. And I don't know how my dad got hooked up with Gene Autry, but he worked for him.
What all did he do for Gene Autry?
Took care of Champion right there in Lake Worth. He had his horse Champion there, and my dad trained on him and kept him groomed, and he just worked for him. It's like Brother Gene. We went to the cowboy induction back there in Fort Worth, and he said, "Little brother," he said, "look at this," and he pulled his shirt and it said, "Made especially for Gene Autry." He had on one of Gene Autry's coats. My brother Gene. I was like, "Where did you get that?" He said, "Well, it's so old the buttons fell off of it." He said, "But he said I'll have him sew some more buttons on it." He said, "I said, man, that's a nice looking jacket." Gene Autry was a little guy because Brother Gene's a little guy. He was a little guy, but he was sure sporting that coat around with that Gene Autry on it.
Was Don and Gene about the same size? Don wasn't a big guy.
Don was just a little bit taller than Gene,
Yeah.
and then I was taller than all of them, so I don't know where that came from. Our dad was short.
How'd they get so handy with a rope at such a young age?
My dad taught them.
Your dad was a roper.
I guess. I mean, he worked for. My dad was a trick roper.
Okay.
And he taught them, and he went to haul them all over the place. They went Madison Square Garden, Fort Worth. They were the world's champion juvenile trick ropers in 1936, and then Fort Worth had them back in 1938, and same thing, world's champion.
They got a great display to them down there at Fort Worth. You showed me a picture of, and they got, the old timey big silver trophy
Trophies.
cups, and they has champion trick ropers at Fort Worth Fat
Fort Worth
Stock
Fat
Show.
Stock Show, and those came from my sister-in-law Sandy McLaughlin, and then the other one came for Gene was from his boy Clifford, and it took me a year and a half to get them in there, but they're in the trophy cases there. I'll have to show it to you,
Yeah.
Jimbo. It's a nice thing.
Yeah, it's a really cool trophy case setup they got for them there, Jimbo.
When Don got too big to be a child trick roper, he took up cab roping, I guess. Who got him started at? Do you know?
I don't know. Like I say,
Hard to say, but he was around all those great ropers at those rodeo, Toots Mansfield and those early Clyde Burke and those early cab ropers, and he probably thought, well, man,
he won 5 world championships legging calves.
legging calves. He was the best legger there ever was, Cody.
At Dan Taylor, at Cheyenne, he told me, he says, your brother's the smartest man that ever rode behind the barrier. He said, big cattle, little cattle, it didn't matter. He could do it all.
Mm-hmm. But he was known as the best legger that's ever lived.
And well, with Don went on the calf roping, and Brother Don's his nickname was Tricky.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he quit trick roping, he started calf roping. Then Gene kept going with the trick roping, and Gene went to every rodeo as an adult trick roping, and he said, Gene said, I don't know anybody that's roped for 80 years in a row. Do you, brother? And I said, no, I can't think of anybody that's roped 80 years. Yeah.
Cody, he was a trick roper in Urban Cowboy.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That movie, if you remember, when they're kind of toward the end, wasn't it, when he was doing that?
He was sitting on the bucking machine.
Yeah.
And, they call him out by his real name in that movie.
Yeah.
Gene McLaughlin, trick roping.
Yeah.
Wow, we had old Barry Corbin on here. He claims that was his first movie role of any kind.
Yeah.
Here a few years ago.
Yeah.
I remember him on that. I never worked on it, but I remember, that's the first time I'd ever seen Barry Corbin was.
And Pulaski's got a connection to Don because he bought that old black horse, that my grandpa had. And my grandpa won the world on him, and Don won the world on him like 3 times. Actually, twice. The first world title he won on was on Roney, but the world still roping title. But he rode him for a long time and really made him famous, didn't he?
Yep, and that's one of the saddles and the buckle and the back number. I got the number 1 back number and the saddle and the world's champion buckle, thanks to my sister-in-law, Sandy McLaughlin.
Right.
What a lovely lady. Gosh,
Oh, yeah,
dang.
absolutely.
Oh, and I got to mention my beautiful wife's here with me today, too, Diane McLaughlin.
You did marry way above your head, Bobby. I can tell you that right now.
I think so.
She's way better looking than you.
Yeah.
She's way smarter than you.
And she's got more hair than I do.
She got more hair than you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what happened? You figure out you didn't want to be a bull rider?
Well, my brother Lee told me, he said, brother, you come out here to California and work for me on this ranch. He said, I'll get you in the movie business and you can start working extra. And I thought, okay, that sounds good. And when I left Fort Worth, all my buddies said, you'll never get in that movie business. And I didn't know if I would or not, because I just found out, Lee and Gene, they'd worked on Bonanza, and I knew that my brother was partners with Loren Green, and they had thoroughbred racehorses. But I went out there right out of high school, and he said, well, you come out here, and he said, you might be able to get in the movies riding them bulls and stuff. And believe it or not, the first stunt job I had was working for a man by the name of Billy Burton. He is a stunt coordinator. He's a lifetime member of the RCA. He's got a gold card, and he's done every event there was. And little did I know, I was being taught by the best. But they needed a bull rider after injuring Chuck Henson, Larry McKinney, and the double for the Incredible Hulk. It was time for me to get on this bull, and the man that was directing it, he asked me, he said, do you ride bulls? And I said, well, I get on a lot of them. And he said, well, do you mind riding that bull? And I said, what do you want me to do with him? And he said, I'd like to get that bull. If I could get him to go by the bullfighting barrel, then you could get off on top of the barrel. And I'm like, wow, is this really going to happen? But they'd already went through 2 NFR clowns and another bull rider, a black bull rider by the name of Johnny Ashby, which was really good. And he said, well, I said, I'll try to ride him over there. And it's like, so they took that bull. He didn't buck. He was just looking to hook somebody, which he previously already did. 2 NFR clowns that were working on it. They went to the hospital. And I got off like it was just like picture perfect. He bull went to the barrel. I got off, and then a movie star by the name of L.Q. Jones. Everybody knows L.Q. Jones. Been in a lot of famous movies.
Played in the Virginian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He'd been in a lot of stuff. Yep. And he was playing the rodeo champ in this movie, the Incredible Hulk television series. And he said, if I could just get you to fall on top of the barrel off of the bull, he said, then I can put LQ on a stepladder, and I can take the camera down low, and I can get him falling off of that stepladder to the top of that barrel. And he said, that'll be my cut. And so it was like it was perfect. And it's like, and they love me, man. It's like, all I did was ride a bull, and I didn't get hooked like I normally would. And so I went right back on to working extra after that. And I just happened to be working on a show that Loren Green was called Battlestar Galactica, and I was riding camels on the back lot of Universal, and the job was over, it was lunchtime, and I was amazed at where I was. And I was in Fort Worth one week, and the next week I'm on a set of a major television series. And it's like I just couldn't believe what was going on. But so I said there was a set, and it said Hot Set Incredible Hulk, and I thought, man, that's the show I worked on a couple of weeks ago. So I opened the door, and I just kind of peeked in there, and I'll be danged if it wasn't that same director that was directed the bull riding part of it. And I was like, and he said, hey, Bobby Mack, come on in here. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm on the back lot here working extra riding camels. And he said, son, he said, you don't need to be doing that. He said, you got way too much talent. I mean, I thought I had him fooled, me riding bulls. But he kept me over there for 4.5 years on the Incredible Hulk. So every time you seen Lou Ferrigno throwing somebody through the air, it was me. Wig, bald, whatever. It was me going through the air. And they put us on air rams, which is nitrogen air. And I got to where I could ride them really good. So I got all the jobs. So
What is that air ram? Nitrogen
it's
air? I have no
nitrogen
idea.
air, and it's like you can stand on it and hit it with a button, and it'll fire. It goes.
Oh, yeah.
And when he does this,
Like at the front of Fall Guy, he has that deal, and you can kind of fly with it?
yeah, no, this is like a charge. It's like like a rocket, and it just throws you up it. And the Hulk would grab you by the back of the collar, and on 3, it'd go 1, 2, 3, and it would go. And the special effects would hit that machine, and it would go just the motion of his hands like that, and we would go, as far as we could possibly go till we wrecked at the end of it. And I didn't know what pads were. I mean, all them guys use pads, and then I see why. I started using them too. It was to protect yourself. But like I say, I was young and dumb and out of Fort Worth, and was put in this place, and it was like a different world, And I lasted 35 years, and that's where I met my wife, at the physical therapy clinic when I had to have surgery, and that's where I met her. And she's a good old gal. I wound up marrying her.
You drawed good, didn't you?
I drew good that day, yeah.
For sure.
She tried 3 times, and I said, this girl must really care about me. She wants to marry me.
Is old L.Q. Jones, is he still alive?
No, he passed away this last
He
year.
lived to be way up there, didn't he?
Yeah, I seen him at a funeral. I can't remember where it was, but it was. Yeah, he's been gone for about a couple of years now.
Okay.
They were talking about real cowboys in the sports news, and it spelled it REEL, real cowboys, and they had a movie reel. And he was in the picture that I gave him. It was with L.Q. Jones, and I got him to sign it for me. And so I still have that sports news with him in it and me in it, and he signed it for me. But yeah, that's the only time I ever doubled it. And they spray painted my hair gray, and I look just like him on camera.
And your brother Lee, you touched that he was good friends with Lauren Green, but he did a lot of stunt work, didn't he? And acted.
He started out doing stunts on Bonanza, him and Gene both. And he had a horse run into a tree with him and broke his back or his neck. And then he went into acting. But he studied acting at Hardin Simmons, and he played football at Hardin Simmons. But his first movie was McClintock with John Wayne. Yeah. I think it was 1963. I can't remember. He was the guy that went down the mud hill, the first guy. John Wayne says, I think I'll know the hell I want. And he hit him, and down the mud hole he went, and that was his first stunt, was on McClintock. That was my brother Lee.
That's about the most famous scene
and line
in the history of Westerns, yeah.
And
Pilgrim,
then,
you got a lot of people hurt today. Somebody hit you in the mouth, I won't, everybody knows that scene.
Yep.
And that Leo Gordon, he was a great character actor, the big guy that played the guy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know it, but when he was about 16, 17 years old, he thought it'd be a good idea to rob a drugstore with a pistol.
Really?
Him and another guy. And police chased him, and he got shot in the stomach. Police shot him in the stomach. And he did about 6 years in San Quentin.
wow, I didn't know
But while
that.
he was in there, he turned his life around. He became he wrote scripts and stuff, and he was a lot smarter than he looked because he just played a big brute all the time. But he wrote scripts for Westerns. And they said the first time he acted with John Wayne shot him in the stomach. And when he shot him in the stomach, he grabbed himself and fell forward. And John Wayne said, cut. Said, I shot you in the stomach. You're supposed to fall forward. He pulled up his shirt and said, I've been shot in the stomach, and I fell forward. John, okay, fall forward. But John said he was the scariest guy he ever worked with, was that Leo Gordon. Great character actor.
In that scene, the guy was looking for his daughter, and he thought that the Indians took her,
yeah.
and then On the whole, she was just taking a ride with that one old
Well, the
boy.
horse just got away.
Yeah, the horse got away. Yeah.
A good one.
Oh, my goodness. I can't believe your brother was the guy they threw down the hill the first time.
Well, I couldn't either, but after seeing him in person, I never seen my brother Lee from when I was a baby, and I don't remember him. He was on the police force there in Saginaw, Texas. He was a police officer, my brother Lee, and then I don't know how he got to California, but he got to California. But I found out how he got in the Screen Actors Guild. He told me 2 or 3 things, and I was down at a friend of mine, Ole Smith, in Sonora, Texas.
Yep.
And he took me down to Jim Bob's, the son of Jim Bob Altizer, Mac Altizer. And he said, I want you to meet Jim Bob. And, of course, Jim Bob, he rodeoed with my brother Don all those years. And they were good friends. And sitting in the barn, and, I was like in awe just to meet Jim Bob Altizer. And he said, did your brother Lee ever tell you how he got in that movie business? And I'd heard a couple different stories how he got in, was McClintock and this, that, and the other. And Jim Bob said, sit down here a minute. And he said, let me tell you the story. And he said, my folks, or my family, they ran that Screen Actors Guild back in the day out there in L.A. And he said, and your brother Don come to me, and he said, we were talking, and he said, Jim Bob said, what's your brother Lee doing? He said, well, he's wanting to become an actor. And Jim Bob said, well, let me call out there and see if we can't get him in that Screen Actors Guild. So he did, and anyways, it's funny. I said, Jim Bob, do you mind if I use your telephone? And it's one of them old rotary phones down there in the barn, way out in the middle of nowhere. And I called my brother Lee, and I said, you'll never guess who I'm sitting here with. And he said, who's that, little brother? And I said, I'm sitting here with Jim Bob Altizer. You know that man? He goes, oh, why, sure I do. I said, well, the story you told me about getting in the Screen Actors Guild ain't near the story that Jim Bob just told me. He said, well, I thought I told you Jim Bob got me in there. He's the one that got me in the Screen Actors Guild. And I said, no, that ain't the story I heard. But anyways, here's Jim Bob. And they started talking. But that's where I first met Jim Bob Altizer, was in that barn down there. I'll never forget it. Ole Smith took me down there. I said, take me down there. I want to meet Jim Bob. I meet Jim Bob Altizer.
Wasn't Ole in a movie?
Yeah.
I got Ole
Or two?
working. Yeah, oh yeah. Yes, sir.
I think he was in Urban Cowboy, wasn't he? A little part or something?
That I don't know. I just know that.
Good old boys. I know he tied a steer down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ole Smith gave me my first steer wrestling horse. It was a mare, a black mare. We won't tell her name, but anyways, I said, why do you want to give me that horse, Ole? And he said, well, every time I go to get off, she goes to the hot dog stand. And he said, my hip can't take much more of that hitting on that hip. And so I took her out there, and she would let you run as many you want to at the rodeo, but she didn't like to practice. But Ole gave me my first steer wrestling horse and a saddle. And I went to winning on her, and I said, well, she works great for me. But yeah, Ole, he worked, Billy Burden hired him a few times back there in Texas, and I got him a job for Terry Leonard, he was a big stunt coordinator out there. He's retired now, but he's the one that got my Screen Actors Guild card on a movie called 1941, where I got to work with Slim Pickens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He was in the submarine. But we worked on the back lot at Warner Brothers. And it was 1941 with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. And next thing I see Slim Pickens walking around the set. And I never knew him, but I knew who he was. But it was pretty cool to get to work with him on that.
Did you guys become friends? Get familiar
you know
with each
what?
other?
I introduced myself to him, and he said, I know your brothers. Everybody knows the brothers. But he was pretty busy that day. He was in the submarine in some boxer shorts and a wife beater T-shirt, And he was in the submarine with the Japs. So, but
I just figured, we've met a lot of guys that run in the same circles with Slim Pickens. Not very many of them knew him so far.
Yeah.
That well.
Yeah.
You notice that?
he was pretty quiet. I mean, until he did his lines and stuff. But he was a great actor.
Yeah, one of the best.
My favorite is when he was with John Wayne in the bar, and he's needing to hire new hands, and he told him, he said, you need to hire the schoolboys. And he said, I got all these cattle to get to Belle-Fourche. But that was a great scene with John Wayne and Slim Pickens in there when they were trying to figure out who was going to go on the cattle drive.
One of the most famous rodeo pictures of all time of not an actual rodeo event is Slim Pickens and another guy over at the Cow Palace getting in a fist fight right there in the arena.
That guy knocked him out one punch.
Did he?
Yeah.
Slim Pickens?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a one-punch fight, knocked him colder than a cucumber.
They used to have those boxing matches up here at the Cow Palace, and the first year I went, they stopped it. They was just having a bucking ball. Gary LeFew had a bucking ball thing up there with.
Did you ever go to the bucking ball?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What was that all about? I mean, I remember reading about it when I was a kid and stuff, but would people like dress up and go to it?
I dressed up as a sumo wrestler. A lot of guys dressed up, but yeah, and then they gave a buckle for first place, and it said the bucking ball, Cow Palace, whatever year it was, but yeah, and then I think Gary LeFew, I think he moved that to Vegas now, that bucking ball.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
No
That
boxing
Cow Palace,
matches.
that was quite the rodeo back in the day. I think it's been since the early 1990s since they've had a rodeo over there.
Well, I think they changed it. It was the last rodeo of the year.
It used to be for a long time.
We'd go up there, but they changed it, and they had it for a while in the middle of the year for the Sierra Circuit in California. But yeah, I went there numerous times. Made the short round there. Won a little bit. Not much to speak of, but
I can't believe it. A bunch of wild cowboys at the end of the year
oh yeah, it was a while.
descending down on San Francisco, California. Can you imagine the wild times and the wild fights that these guys had back then? And just good times too, you know?
It used to be a heck of a good time back there when they would box. I can remember them guys talking about the boxing matches at the Cow Palace, and I couldn't wait to go. Not that I was going to get in the ring with anybody, but it's like all the stories about Alan Keller and who he fought, and these guys that were legends. And it's like, man, I just wanted to go and see those guys box, but they didn't have it. The first year I went, I think they were starting to hurt each other pretty good, and I think they said, we can't have that here no more.
We've had Alan Keller 2 different podcasts so far.
Yeah.
Could probably do another 2.
Probably do another.
Oh, yeah. Diane and I, we stop by and see him every time we get up to Olathe. And he always asks about Sandy. He goes, how's Sandy doing? I said, she's doing great. I said, she told me to tell you hello. My brother Don and Alan were really good friends. And he would always act up and stuff, but not in front of my brother Don. He was quite the gentleman around my brother Don.
Yeah, there was a guy here that was a really good guy, really well-known guy named John Israel. Never said a cuss word in his life, probably never been in a fight in his life. And, him and Alan were good friends, but they were just the odd couple, I always thought.
Right.
I love Alan. Every time we go up there, he'll talk about more people, and I don't know half of the people. He knows everybody. He used to, for Benny Binion, he used to be his bodyguard.
His main man.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's like, Diane, she goes, he's kind of crusty. I said, yeah, but he's a good guy, and he loved my brother Don, so.
We were walking up here on Main Street in the old Duncan Hotel, and I said, Alan, did you ever stay in that hotel? He said, yeah, I stayed there with Lucky Luciano's daughter one time. He just got a story and knows everybody, like you said.
Yeah, he does know everybody. Everybody knows him, too.
Yeah.
Last time we were there, I said, Alan, I never see you wear a buckle. I said, I know you've won a bunch of rodeos. I said, come on, man, show me your buckles. And, okay, he says, and he'd bring one at a time out, and he'd take it back. But he won some great rodeos in that steer roping.
Yeah, he was a wild man. He his very first rattle out of the box when he left his dad's house, he said he went to a rodeo in South Dakota with Casey Tibbs from his dad's house in a convertible car. They hired him to drive as a kid.
Well, what a trip that would have been.
I know. What about it?
I finally got to meet Casey Tibbs. He was putting on the Ramona Rodeo there in California. It's still called the Casey Tibbs Rodeo. And my nephew Clifford was entered in 2 events there, Cliff McLaughlin. And, of course, there was no cell phones back then. And I just happened to be in there picking up a check, and they were talking about who was going to win the all-around. And I was looking at the paperwork, and I said, looks like my nephew's going to win the all-around. And so I called him when I got home, and I said, hey, I picked your saddle up. He said, what saddle? And I said, the all-around from Ramona. I said, it says Casey Tibbs, all-around cowboy. He said, I won it. And I said, well, you're in 2 events, but you won more money in the 1 event than they did in the 2. And I said, you won it. I got it right here. You don't want it, I'll keep it. He said, no, you can bring that one over to the house. I said, okay, Clifford. He still got it in his living room.
Well, that's really something to keep, anything with Casey Tibbs' name on it.
Yeah.
Sure.
For sure. What were some of the movies? You worked on some big movies. Tombstone, The Patriot, Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes, sir.
Die Hard, Silverado.
Yes, sir.
You told me you and Eddie Murphy became friends.
Well,
how the heck did you and Eddie Murphy become friends?
A man by the name of Gary McLaughin, which my wife knows very well. They called him the Whiz Kid. He could do anything. I mean, anything. And I got hooked up with him, and he put me to work down there in Beverly Hills. And I was working there just playing an indie stuntman. I doubled one guy going across the salad bar, and, they put me just wherever. And then he put me down there to do a scene with Eddie Murphy in the warehouse where he busted this guy's clan of guys that were transporting cocaine. Anyways, Eddie Murphy busted him, and we charged in, and I had Eddie Murphy by his arms, and this other gentleman that was an actor. We started a fight, and Eddie, we rehearsed it over and over and over, and he was supposed to put his hand on my chest and stop me from coming into him, so it would be the distance of his fist so he wouldn't hit me. Mm-hmm. And he forgot to put his hand up, and I walked right into his fist, and down I went, 3 stitches in the lip. And then as he knocked me back over in the crates, I didn't even know I was bleeding. I mean, it's like, they said, we need a paramedics. I said, I'm looking, who are they going after? And it was me, and I had to get some bunch of stitches in the back of my leg. But no, he was a good guy. It's like, and then I went over on Beverly Hills Cops 2, and Gary McLaughlin, the same man, he was running that show as a stunt coordinator. And he's dead and gone now, rest in peace. He was a good guy, man. He could do everything. He stayed at our house, I don't know how many days and nights he stayed with us. But Eddie Murphy was sitting in his chair on Beverly Hills Cops 2, and Gary, he pulled me up behind Eddie, and he goes, "Hey, Eddie, do you remember this guy?" And he said, "Bobby." He said, "Yeah, I remember Bobby. How's your lip?" And I said, "It's a lot better. It's a lot better." He was a year later, but he says, "Are you working?" And I said, "Well, no, I come over here to visit. Hopefully I'd get a job over here." He said, "Gary, put Bobby on. Put Bobby on the job." So I got to work on Beverly Hills Cops too. But he was a good guy. I really liked him. He was a lot of fun to be around.
What was Nick Nolte like?
I worked on 48 Hours, but I worked on there as an extra when I first got in the movies. And, he was big, bold, and loud, what I remember from him, but great actor. Great actor. But, I worked on quite a few movies. I worked on Tombstone would probably be my all-time favorite. My nephew doubled Kurt Russell, Clifford, and I was an indie stunt guy on it, but I got to do a backover on there for Mr. Terry Leonard. He says it's the best one he's ever done in the movie business. And I said, well, that's good, because I sure didn't want to do it again, because that first one hurt pretty good.
You had to flip off the back of a horse or something?
I did a backover as fast as a horse would go, and Tony Boggs, another stuntman, he's a cowboy team roper, ropes really good. I told him, I said, "Now, Tony," I said, "when you go to hit me with that shotgun," it was a rubber shotgun, but it was still pretty. Mm-hmm. And I said, "I want you to hit me right in the top of the hat, and I want you to hit me so hard." He said, "You want me to hit you really hard in the top of the hat?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "There's a chance that I might chicken out about halfway through it, and if you don't hit me hard enough, I may not get all the way over." And he goes, "Okay." So, he got me over, and it was a hell of a job.
Did you have a wire tied to you on that, or you just flipped yourself off of that horse?
No, I had a vest on, and it had a hook in the back of it, and they put the saddle. They put a cable to the back of the cantle, and then they hooked a ring over top of that hook that was on my back. So when I got upside down, the ring fell off, so I wouldn't hang and drag to the horse. And I was like, that was pretty scary. I couldn't see if it was going to come loose. He said, "Just make sure you get all the way over." So the first thing hit was my feet, my knees, and then my head. That was it.
You mentioned Nick Nolte a while ago. Remember that old mugshot he had here a few years ago?
Yeah, the hair all messed up.
That's one for the ages right there. That's a great mugshot.
I think he's retired. I haven't seen him. He did some stuff there towards the end, but
if I ever get thrown in jail, Jimbo, that's the way I want my mugshot to look.
Yeah, it probably will.
What about the movie Silverado? That's one of the breakout roles for old Kevin Costner, seems like.
And that Scott Glenn was in that too.
Scott Glenn too, yeah.
Well, I worked on Three Amigos, and the coordinator that ran that, his name was Jerry Gatlin.
It's another one of my favorite movies, Three Amigos.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Jerry Gatlin.
It's hilarious.
Jerry Gatlin, he worked on everything, all the Westerns. And anyways, he gave me a job to come over there on Three Amigos, and I wound up working for 3 months for him over there in Tucson. And a lot of stuff I had never done. And he said, "Who's got eyes to do that high fall off that church steeple tomorrow?" And I was like, I was chomping at the bit. I wanted to do it, but, I didn't know how to set them stunts up. I'd never been, so he says, I raised my hand. I said, I'd like to do it. But I said, I'm not really familiar with you. He's an old cowboy, everything was, oh, heck, I've been hiring that into a row of boxes. And I said, well, I'm not going to go into a row of boxes that high, because when I got up there and looked down between my arm, it looked like it was a bag that they had for me. It was about as big around as a Copenhagen can. And I went, oh, my God. And I'm supposed to be knocked out when they hit me in the head with a rock, and the Three Amigos getting over into El Guapo's Portrait.
Yeah.
And the first time they threw the rock, it went by my head, and it didn't hit me. And I was like, taking a deep breath, because I'm supposed to go when the rock hits me. Well, finally they hit me with the rock, and I'm going to tell you what, as I fell off of there, I'm supposed to be knocked out, so I can't look for the bag. I have to look for it, and then hopefully I'll hit it. But I told Jerry Gatlin, I said, hey, I think I'm going to need a row of boxes underneath that airbag. I said, because that's the same airbag that we've been going into practicing at the house, and they've got the sides of it taped up with duct tape. And I said, it don't look very safe. He said, I've been hiring that just into a row of boxes. And I said, well, then you'll have to do it, Jerry, because I don't think I can do that. I said, I weigh a little more than you. And he said, all right, we'll get you a row of boxes. So they put the boxes up, furniture pad over the boxes, and they roped them all together. There was nothing in the boxes. And then they put the airbag on top of it. And when I did it, I went through the airbag and into the boxes. The boxes saved me.
Oh.
Yeah, they saved me. I'm serious. I went, Gatlin, look, I told you I needed a row of boxes. He said, good job. And, they don't brag on nothing. They just keep moving on to the next setup. But Jerry Gatlin hired me. My second time on a Western was on Silverado. And I went over there, and they had a scene where they were trying to steal the safe, the strong box, out of this camp, and it was in the snow. And they come in, I think it was Scott Glenn, and it might have been Kevin Costner, I can't remember, but they get a rope on the strong box, and they start dragging it out of town, and everybody's shooting at them from the top of the mountains, and the rope clips me, and I go end over end and land right on my head in that snow. And we were there for about a week and a half. That's all I did on Silverado.
I think, was Kenny Call in that too?
Kenny Call worked on it. He sure did. Yeah, there was a bunch of cowboys on it.
Dang.
Who perfected all these stunt
How did they even talk someone into doing them on the first time?
Well, I mean, how many people got killed while they were perfecting all this stuff and to make it like it is today? Just like that hook you said that comes unhooked when you...
Yeah, I mean, it's like the part I left out about that, I had L-shaped stirrups. And I was like, they were called steps. You transfer from a horse to a stagecoach or to a train. I've been practicing that stuff. Billy Burton took us under his wing, me and a boy by the name of Norman Howell, who played Weedy on John Wayne and the Cowboys. He'd been in the movie business a long time. But Billy Burton taught us how to turn over cars. He taught us how to get set on fire, do high falls, fights. And I first met him on a show called The Driver with Ryan O'Neal and Bruce Dern. It was a car picture. And this guy came down the street in this Trans Am, and he flipped this thing, and it went, I don't know how many rotations it flipped, and nobody would walk away from this. And Billy steps out. He's got his cowboy boots on. He's got his belt buckle on. That's the guy I told you, he rodeoed, and he's got a gold card, and he's done everything. He's directed Second Unit. He's directed movies. He's coordinator. Matter of fact, he just got the Lifetime Achievement Award, and he called me out of all people to present the award to him. I was stoked, man. But that's who I wanted to be like. I said, that's the guy I want to be like right there. I tried hard, but I couldn't hold a candle to him. He's a good stuntman, good director.
I think Yakima Canutt pioneered a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it started back with Yak. Yeah.
At first, they did their own stunt work.
Yeah.
Like Tom Mix, didn't he do like a big leap over off a canyon?
Hey, I think that's fake.
I'm not for sure, but I think it was around 66, 67 before they even said stunt coordinator. You know what I mean? It wasn't no stunt coordinator. Like you said, you'd go to work, and the first assistant director, he would come to you and go, we got this to do, and can you do this? And the director handled it, the first assistant director, not the director. And then they started with a stunt coordinator, which, made things a little safer, guys that really knew what was going on. And I was blessed. I was blessed to work for, I got it. Terry Leonard got me my Screen Actors Guild card on 1941. And then And all I had to do was go show my resume to anybody else. And they said, "Oh, you work for Terry Leonard." And I said, Terry Leonard was a famous stuntman. And he's still alive today. I just seen him, a month ago, Diane, when we seen him a month ago. And then I moved on to different guys. And then Billy Burton, of course, who started me. It was really cool to have those guys' names on your resume. It's like, say, man, I work for these guys. I mean, these guys were the real deal when I got in. It's like, and you just didn't walk up and become a stuntman. I mean, you had to beg these guys, to help you. And it's like, because they don't want to mess around with people that doesn't have the heart, and, they're wasting their time, And I guess Billy's seen something in me and Norman Allen. He helped us a lot, man. I mean, he taught me everything about the movie business. I'll have to show you some photos of him riding bulls. I got them on my phone.
Yeah, I like to check.
Did you ever have to do any horse falls?
I had a falling horse. I made my own falling horse. And it just so happened he was a Palomino. He was yellow. And they usually use dark-colored horses. And they usually, if there's a real good one, which mine was a real good one, what was his name, Diane? You can remember. Bo Mac. Yes, my wife. She's good with names. And but he was the wrong color, and to use him, they had to streaks and tip him or die him completely. It's like, it's like you said, two years to film that movie here in Pawhuska, and it's like, it wouldn't took hardly any time to die him, but they just, but he was a great falling horse, man. Back
in the day, they'd have an Indian fight scene or something, and they'd have a good fall horse, and he'd fall. Then they'd take him and repaint him,
sure,
and then fall again, make it look like it's a different fall, but it's the same horse.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty common.
There was a guy by the name of Danny Costa, a good friend of mine. He had the best horse, fallen horse, I think, as after time went on, and I was in the movie business for a while, but yeah, I think he's a senior world champion team roper, but Danny, I can't remember that horse's name, but they used him in so many movies. And they did that, what you said, Jimbo. They'd paint them different colors, streak them down or whatever, and it'd be the same horse. It's a different shot.
Back in the day, it was really pretty bad. They'd run a wire, back in the old days, and just endo those horses. But then they got where they could train them to fall on cues,
They call that the run W.
Yeah.
It's where they hook the wire through their front feet.
And the horse was only good for about one of those a day,
Yeah, and
if they survived it. Even
animal rights people, they said no more. That's it.
If you ever watch any of those really old John Ford movies, like when the Indians was chasing the stagecoach or something, if you watch, those horses take some terrible falls.
Oh yeah, they outlawed that. I mean, as soon as I got in the movie business in 77, I believe it was, and they just had outlawed that. But Billy Burton, he's got footage. There's a guy you need to do a podcast with, man. He's got so many great footage. Diane and I went up and seen all his footage. He's done them all, man. Jumping wagons, dressed up as an Indian, the full team of horses jumping right over their backs, and he did a lot of those run-in W's. I think Terry Leonard's ranch was named the run-in W because Terry Leonard was good at them. Those guys, they had a lot of balls back in the day, man. Of course, we did too, but they've tried to make things safer over the years. And
I've even noticed if you'll pay attention, a lot of the movies they'll have a pile of sand where those horses fall too.
Sure. Oh yeah, we always dug. They didn't dig the sand up on me on Tombstone though. When I went over backwards, there was a guy out there with a rototiller, but it was 120 something degrees, and I felt kind of sorry for this guy. And I walked out there to give him a bottle of water, and I said, "What are you doing out here?" And I said, "What are you digging this pit for?" He said, "Well, they got a stunt man going to do something off a horse right here." And I said, "You can quit now because I'll probably won't get turned all the way over till I'm completely out of that pit." And he says, "Well, no, I got to dig it. That's my job." And I said, "Well, take it easy." I said, "It's 120 degrees or 125 degrees here in Tucson." And I said, "But I'm going to tell you right now, when he hits me with that rifle, that shotgun, he's supposed to hit me right when we go into this pit. And I'm supposed to be turned over before I get out of the pit. But hell, he hit me when I first went to the pit, and I never got turned all the way over until I was completely out of the pit. And I hit rocks, cactuses. It was hard ground.
That made it look good, though.
You guys know
it looked great. Terry Leonard said it's one of the best backovers he's ever seen in the movie business, and he did them all. He started Mini Christmas. Man, those guys did some stuff.
I wonder how many stuntmen's been killed. Have you any idea?
Well, I couldn't tell you. There's been 2 or 3 since I was in the business and retired.
Probably several before that.
Yeah, a couple guys with high falls. I would be wrong if I said their names wrong. So, but yeah, a couple guys doing high falls went through the bag. You know, they'd get up there. What I heard was they would sew the X on the bag, okay, and then they would jump through it on this one, and where they weakened that bag, where they stitched that X, they weakened that bag. Never thought about it. Went right through it.
One guy in that movie, Horse Soldiers, he was a real famous stuntman before your time, but I can't think of his name, but he just did a simple saddle fall and broke his neck.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and they left it in the movie. John Ford, they said John Ford just cried, like, you know, really upset him.
Well, there was and I didn't know him, and he was a cowboy. He was an RCA cowboy, and he went on that Comes a Horseman with James Caan.
Yeah.
I want to say his name was Jimmy Shepperson. I'm not for sure on the name, so don't hold me to it, but he does a saddle fall into a drag, and he had to go between these two railroad cross ties. He said, well, when I hit and I get turned over, he said, you know, you don't need to replace both of them. He said, just that one on that side. And he hit the ground and got turned over, and he hit the real one, and it killed him. I do know that back in the day. I just got into the movie business. I didn't know the man.
Right.
Just heard about it. But
you were telling us about one in a helicopter, too, crashed out in the ocean.
Oh, that was, we just said, Art Scholl was his name. He was a stunt pilot. No, he crashed a plane.
Oh, it was a plane? Okay.
No, he had him on a helicopter.
Oh, that's right. I knew there was a helicopter in there somewhere.
Yeah, had me on a cable and was supposed to just lift off of the ground. And they liked it so well, they said, well, let's put a vest on him and run a cable up to the strut. And I'm gonna tell you what, I didn't much like that, but I did it because I had no choice. I was cabled onto it, but it's like, I don't like those heights. I mean, that one fall I did off of the church steeple on Three Amigos, I'm telling you, when I looked down there, that bag looked like a can of Copenhagen, and I was like, God dang it, man. But it got bigger as I got to it, of course.
Did you get to know Chevy Chase or anything on that set?
You know, they were so funny, those guys. I never got to, I mean, I visited with Steve Martin a little bit and Martin Short, but Chevy Chase, those guys were funny, but the Mexicans were funnier than, you know, El Guapo.
Yeah, he was funny in that movie for sure.
They were good. They were really funny. There's a lot of RCA cowboys worked on that too. Danny Oaxaco, his brother, Jeff Oaxaco. It was just a lot of cowboys. It was a lot of fun back in the day. All cowboys.
I think it was just natural for a cowboy to evolve into stunt work. A lot of them, you know.
Well, they can, you know, that's where it all started. Was in the westerns. You know, a turnover in a car. I mean, in a wagon became the turnover in a car. You know what I mean? They just instead of turning the wagon over, they just moved on to modern day, and they turned the car over. It's like Billy was saying, the wagons where they turn them over, and as it escalated on into modern day as they turn cars over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cody, that little skinny guy, Hank Wharton was his name. He played McClintock, and he played in The Searchers. He always played somebody that's kind of maybe a little off in the head or something, a little skinny guy. And he was an old bronc rider at Madison Square Garden and stuff.
No kidding.
But you'd know him. He played a lot of John Ford movies. Hank Wharton, I think was how you pronounced it.
I just had my daughters watch that Three Amigos just the other day. And my youngest, she loves that where they, cross their arms like that.
Oh, yeah.
And put their hands on the side, do the pelvic thrust. That's what she walks around doing now.
I'm telling you, John Landis directed that, and everybody on the set, they would holler out, "Be quiet, okay?" And they'd roll the cameras, and they would speed, and they would have sound, and you could hear somebody snickering over there, and he was getting so mad, but you couldn't help but laugh. I mean, these guys were funnier than heck, I mean, but like you said, that.
Yeah.
They shot the guy in the singing bush. Remember they shot the yeah. Well, that was Sam Kinison played the part in that. And
really?
I doubled him, and he had a heart attack and died while we were shooting that movie. The
Wow.
Three Amigos. Yeah. You know who Sam Kinison was?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Comedian, scream real loud.
Yeah.
No,
He was a preacher before he was a raunchy stand-up comedian.
Yeah, I doubled him, and they put me in a river over there in Tucson. And it was ice cold, this water. And it was 120 degrees, but it was ice cold in this water. And they wanted me to go down and get the water real still and then come up screaming. And it was doubling Sam Kinison. I looked just like him. They had me in a beard and a wig and everything. But, yeah, they cut all that out after, he died. And they cut it all out. But they shot around it and made it work. It was a hell of a movie.
He's in another big movie that was one of my favorites when I was a kid, Over the Top with old Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I worked on that.
What'd you do on that movie?
Well, Gary McLaughlin, the guy I was telling you about, the Whiz Kid, okay, he ran that show, and he said, Bobby Mack, he said, I ain't got no more Indy cars to drive. He said, but if you want to work, he said, can you use your pickup? And I said, I just had a brand new Chevrolet it was a single cab, had a sleeper on the back. It was red and white. You can see that truck all through that movie. But I tore that truck plumb up. Had to drive it back to Texas and trade it in on another new one. But I got to work it, but I used my truck. And they never hit it. Man, I'll tell you what. And I did so much stuff on so many movies. It's sometimes it's just hard to remember everything,
Did you work with Ben Johnson any or know him?
No, I knew him.
Okay.
I met him. I went to the Ben Johnson Celebrity Ropings. And, of course, my brother Don, they were good friends, him and Ben. But, I mean, I sat in a motel room with Ben Johnson and 2 or 3 other cowboys at Griffith Park when they had Ben Johnson roping there out there in L.A. And Ben, I met him at the first one they had in Fort Worth at the Will Rogers Coliseum, my brother Don and him. He said, hey, little brother, and he walked right on by me, and I looked over my shoulder, and he walked right up to Ben Johnson, and they were good friends. They won the world, the same year, 1953. And
what an iconic year that was.
Yeah.
I know.
Who else won the world in 1953, Jimbo?
Oh, I think.
Historian, right here it goes.
Oh, I don't know. Ike Rude was steer roping champion.
Ross
I know
Dollarhide.
that. Todd Watley won the Bulldogging.
Eddie
Ross
Akridge.
Dollarhide. Eddie Akridge.
Yeah.
Probably 1 or 2. I'm not.
Casey
thinking of.
Tibbs,
Oh, yeah, he was in there,
Saddle
too.
Bronc champion.
Battle
right?
Bronc champion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
that's maybe one of the
Yeah.
number one years in all of rodeo as far
Yeah.
as
Just a shame that
iconic.
Ike Rude wasn't in that
That's
picture,
a
too.
classic picture of them
Yeah.
standing in front of that. And you see the little short guy on the far right, that's Brother Don.
Yep.
He was littler than all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben's nephew, he was a stuntman also. He was the guy that jumped off the cliff in what is the movie? Gosh dang. Oh, yeah, Butch Cassidy and
Butch
Sundance
Cassidy,
Kid.
Sundance Kid.
He's one of the guys that jumped off that cliff when they had him pinned down.
One of the guys was Mickey Gilbert. Mickey Gilbert doubled Robert Redford from.
Well, there you go. Ben Miller was the other one.
Benny, we call him Benny Bob from Pahuska.
Yeah. We're pretty good friends with the family. They treat us just like family. But Mickey Gilbert, he rode in the Coliseum. I got a picture of him on a bareback horse in the Coliseum there in L.A., and the whole stadium was full back in the 50s. It's like,
Wow.
yeah, oh yeah. They called him Kid Gilbert. And I got to tell you a story. So my brother Don was roping at the farm there in Inglewood. That's where they used to have the rodeo. And Mickey Gilbert, which doubled Robert Redford, doubled him all the way until Mickey died. And I worked on The Last Castle. I got to work with Robert Redford on The Last Castle. But anyways, Mickey Gilbert rode calves, and they called him Kid Gilbert. And I'm real good friends with the whole family. Diane is too. But Mickey went out there and made a nice run, and he was winning the calf roping. And he said, I went and tied my horse up, and I went up there and I sat on the back of the roping chute with your brother Don. And he said, man, your brother was a champion. I said, what happened? He said, well, he told me I made a good run. He said, well, you're going to win this roping, kid. And he said, no, I still got to sweat you, Don. He said, no, I'm just going to go out there and win second. He said, and I'll be damned if your brother didn't go out there and rope that calf and win second. He said, that was unbelievable. He told me, no, you're going to win first, but I'm going to win second. And he said, that's a really good story that I remembered of your brother, Don. I said, that's a good story, though. Hey, you're going to win first, and I'm going to win second.
That is a good story. Mm-hmm. Hey, let's go back to that Ben Johnson pro celebrity team ropings that you did. What was going on around there? How did they work? Because they were a little bit before my time.
There was a big party, and it was funny that you run across my name on the program today here in the museum. I was like,
he's got a day sheet. He's on the day sheet back there.
Oh yeah, I was like, I went to 4 of them. I just can't remember. I know we went to Guthrie, but you know what? It was like a big party. I mean, after we were professionals and we did the roping because they sold tickets. But it was the thing that was so funny was when my brother Don walked. Everything. He's not in the movies. What's he doing here? That was my first thought. And he walked by, he shook my hand and said, what's up, little brother? And I said, what are you doing here? He goes, well, I come to rope. And I said, you can't. I said, and he walked on by me, and him and Ben Johnson, they embraced and shook hands. And I said, oh, I see how you got here. And he said, yeah, maybe it could be talent. And he said, I don't know. He said, well, roping.
Wouldn't they pair up a professional roper with a celebrity roper? Is that what they would do?
Yes, they would. They would. Well, they run out of actors that were cowboys, so the stuntmen got to go. And I was so stoked when I got an invitation to go to the Ben Johnson Celebrity Roping at Fort Worth. And I was so happy. I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to tell my brother Don and Brother Don. And Brother Don's already there, and he's walking by me. I didn't see his name on the day sheet. He said, Ben asked me if I wanted to rope, so I thought I'd rope. It was really cool, man.
Who was an actor that could rope pretty good?
Oh, wow, man. I'm getting pretty old to remember that. I roped with, and I can't think of his name. He was on one of those Westerns. God, dog, I can't remember his name. If I seen it, I'd know it. But I worked, the last one I went to, I was teamed up with Monty Hawkeye Henson. Can you believe that? Yeah. Monty healed for me. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But some of the actors, like, God, dog, the Virginian, I can't remember his name, but he's still alive, I think.
He did just died too.
Oh,
James Drury, you talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they had the guy that played, what was his name? Man, can't think of his name. But all them old-time television series that you've seen, the guys that were still alive, they all showed up. And it was, they did a lot of autograph signing. I mean, it was a big deal. I mean, they did it and they raised money. I believe it was for cancer.
And it's a pretty small group, too, because they all played on the Virginia Bonanza,
Sure.
Just as,
It's just a small group of those guys.
Yeah,
that,
right.
They showed up and, that's still when Westerns were just starting to go out. But if you think about it, look at the Rifleman. I mean, it played forever.
Right.
Forever and ever and ever. And
did you ever meet Johnny Crawford? Did
sure.
you know him? You probably knew him pretty good.
Sure.
Him and Gene were good friends, and Don.
Yeah, he hung out. Well, yeah, he used to go up to Brother Don's and rope back when Don had a Western store up there. Anyways, Johnny. Matter of fact, I roped at that high school or the JRA finals on his horse Two Bits. Yeah. And we have a picture in the living room that Johnny signed for me. Yeah. It says, "For me, Two Bits and Shaggy." It was him and his horse and his dog. But he hung out at my brother Gene's, and he was at the last roping I went to. It was the Dean Smith Celebrity Rodeo in Abilene, and it was a tribute to John Wayne. Yeah. But he was there. But, God, I can't remember those old. I mean, I watched so many westerns when I was a kid growing up. I had a gun on my hip half the time, cap pistol. I thought I was a cowboy.
Doug McClure, too.
Doug McClure, that's who I roped it.
Okay.
He was on was it the Virginian?
Yes. He was a Trampus on the Virginian.
Yes, that's who I roped.
And he was good friends with Benny Bob and came back to Pusker once or twice.
Yeah, that's who I roped with a couple of those ropings.
Doug McClure.
God, that's funny. You say he's a historian all the way, isn't he?
I'm telling you, you can't get anything by Jimbo.
Did he know my name was on the day sheet here, though?
No, I hadn't seen that.
Oh, man, you got one by you, Jimbo.
I know.
He just ain't made it that far in the archives yet. Yeah. He's working on it. Man, you've worked with so many just big-time people. It's just crazy. All the way to, I was looking on here, The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
It was a great show to work on.
What all did you guys do on that? I guess there was a lot of horse riding involved.
No, there was a lot of running, clashing with I was a redcoat, but
ain't it crazy how they used to fight back in the day? They'd all just line up and then charge each other,
shoot, and then get down, and then charge, and then get down and shoot again. And they'd half of them would get shot, and then the next group would move up, and it's like, we did that out in the field. We shot that in North Carolina, but
it was hot wearing all that wool.
No, it was cold in the mornings, and and then of course you had to wear the white wigs, and they had to glue it to your forehead and all that.
Wasn't that weird too? The way they used to wear those white wigs around.
Yeah,
they'd wear white wigs, and they had like big frilly, like the ends of their shirts were all frilly.
Yeah,
right. They wore white wigs. Just
couldn't be any hotter,
or weirder.
I
don't know. To me, it's just kind of weird.
Diane, should I tell them the story about the Patriot?
Yeah.
How I got my job? So they were hiring stunt guys to go on the show, and the wardrobe was one size. So if you didn't fit in the wardrobe, you didn't get to go. So I went on the interview, and of course I couldn't fit in the wardrobe. I mean, I've been eating a little too many donuts, I think. But anyways, and I told the coordinator, I said, if I can get in those clothes, and I go on a diet, I said, it doesn't go for a month yet. I said, can I go? And he said, if you can get in the clothes, Bobby Mack, he said, you're a hell of a stuntman. You can go with us. And I said, okay. So I starved myself to death, and I fit in these clothes. On the next interview, I fit in the clothes, man. I couldn't believe it. I fit in the clothes. I couldn't even get them buttoned, you know. But I had a month to lose the weight to get on them. So I get on the show. Everything's good, you know. I'm just happy to be there. There's a lot of stunt guys there, and I never met Mel Gibson. It was, you know, it was just a really cool environment to be around. There were so many people working on that show. Anyways, I was working with a stuntman by the name of Troy Gilbert, which was Kid Gilbert, Mickey Gilbert, the story I just told you, my brother Don and him roping at the farm. It was his son. And we're doing a fight, and every stunt guy picked a guy out, and that's who you fought with the whole thing. You know, it's like, so you had a routine so that when they filmed it, it wouldn't be like you had egg on your face just in the background. So anyways, I get this, and we start doing this fight, and I've been eating them donuts every morning and drinking that, you know, that milk. And I mean, they have so much food there, and it's like there were those Krispy Kreme, you know, they were hot.
Oh yeah.
And I noticed those pants were getting a little tight on me, and every day, you know, I couldn't stay away from those donuts. They were just delicious in the morning.
They're too dang good to stay away from.
Right. So, and I kept gaining weight, and I knew I was gaining weight, and you know, and I would have the top button not buttoned, and then, you know, and then the wardrobe lady came to me. She said, "Bobby," she said, "You're gonna have to quit eating." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well," she said, "because the pants are so tight on you, and this and the wardrobe was, you know, it was so old. You know, they get that stuff from, you know, they hang it in these buildings forever, and they anyway, so." Time goes on, and I just keep getting heavier and heavier. And so Troy Gilbert, he does a flip with me, and I thought, well, you know what? If I don't wear any underwear, maybe I can get these clothes on. Mm-hmm. So I put the clothes on without the underwear, and they fit, you know, for a couple of days, and then I just kept gaining weight. and the wardrobe lady says, you know, I don't have any more pants to fit you. And I said, well, I'll quit eating. So I was getting serious about it and not eating. And then Troy, he did a flip with me, and he put his foot in my chest and flipped me over through the air. And when I hit it, blew the whole ass end out of these britches. Right?
Yeah.
And I've got a picture in my bathroom. They've both seen it. But it's like I'm there on the set, and I was so embarrassed because I didn't have any underwear on. And Troy's walking around hollering, going, "Look where the bull hooked him. Look where the bull hooked him." And it's getting everybody's attention. And so she said, "I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't have any pants to fit you, Bobby." And I said, anyway, so that night, the wardrobe lady, she saved me for another day. She sewed the whole back end. I mean, they split from the back of my back all the way to the front. And I had no underwear on.
That happened to me tying a steer one time with no underwear.
Oh, it happened.
I showed the whole crowd what I had.
Well, I showed the whole movie set what I had.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she sewed these pants together with some bungee thread. I've never heard of it. And she said, well, they're going to give you a little give now, so be careful. And boy, I made it through that show, but those pants were getting awful tight on me. And it's like she sewed them together with bungee. And I was never so glad when that show was over, just so I could breathe again. Because, I mean, between the wig, taping it and gluing it on, and
Lord,
doing all the fights all day long, and it was just, but it was a good show to work on. I had a ball. But yeah, I'll never forget the pants. I've got pictures in the bathroom, and it's like me looking over my shoulder, and the whole ass end of my britches are out. She saved me. I wish I could remember her name.
Another funny show he was on, Jimbo's Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey. I mean, he's worked with every major star there is.
Right.
I'm pretty blessed, guys, I'll be honest with you. But none of it would have ever happened if it wouldn't have been for my brothers. I mean, the McLaughlin name in the movie business was fantastic because of my brother Lee and my brother Gene. And in the cowboy business, my brother Don. I mean, everybody. Are you Don McLaughlin's little brother? I said, yeah.
Small world out there, isn't it?
It is, but yeah.
Do they have any kind of retirement or anything for stuntmen
Yeah,
when they get
have
old and cripple up?
A few of them never make it that far.
Right.
I went out from Iron Man 2. I told you that story earlier today, Cody. It's like, you know, I told Diane, I said, you know, I've been hurt so many times. I've had so many surgeries. And I'm lucky to be here and still enjoy my life. But, I mean, when you're making good money and, you know, and it's fun, I mean, I love my job. Like she said, you know, you're one of the only person that I know that love their job. And I said, yeah, I didn't know how I was going to make the next house payment or if I was going to even come home to make a house payment. But, you know, it was exciting to me. And I figured if I could ride bulls, I could do anything. And But those guys taught me along the way. I didn't just walk in and make it overnight. I mean, I worked for a lot of major guys, but how many movies do you think I worked on there, Cody? Quite a few, I think.
Well, I don't even know. I'm sure this isn't all of them. It looks like it's about 35 right here between acting and stunts, but they don't have any of your television credits listed on here that I can find. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot.
Well, I did a lot of bit parts on The Incredible Hulk. I mean, I did a lot of bit parts on different things. It's like if the company could save money if they could hire a stuntman, they could do dialogue and do the stunt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then that wasn't fair to the actors. He was taking the job away from those guys. So I said, I won't do that.
Was that two different unions?
No, it's same union.
Same union.
Screen
Okay.
Actors Guild.
Okay.
But I get a pension, and I'm retired, get my Social Security, and I still get royalties off of a lot of those movies.
What about when you get hurt? They have the insurance and stuff?
Oh, yeah. You're protected. You know.
That's a pretty good gig, Cody. Maybe we're in the wrong business.
Stuntman him?
Yeah.
Well, if they started at Westerns again, we all three can go there tomorrow, probably.
Right. We get them to make a movie out of that Mondor deal, but we get on up there, maybe.
It was interesting when they were making the Killers of the Flower Moon here. The guy's cooking. He said that he had to cook like a vegetarian meal, a fish meal, a chicken and a red meat meal, and something else every single day so everybody with different kinds of diets and stuff could eat it all.
Yeah, that's like that chef on that Yellowstone, that television series. I've never worked on it. I'm retired, but I heard that chef, he cooks just whatever, you know what I mean, and cooks for everybody. And
they say that guy can cook too.
Oh, man, they say he can cook. It's terrible. I don't know his name. But
yeah, what is his name? Not Badger or something.
The guy that was here in town, his name was Mario. And his trailer said Mario's.
Well,
he said he goes around to all the Martin Scorsese's stuff.
There's so much good food on those sets. I mean, I had to starve myself to death just so I could double different actors. You know, it's like, and I love to eat, so I'm going to eat now since I'm retired. I think I'll just eat and enjoy it.
Stay off those Krispy Kreme
No,
donuts.
those Krispy Kremes, man, they about did me in on the Patriot.
Yeah.
In my mind, it seemed like I figured they ate, steak and lobster for every meal, all these movie stars and stuntmen and stuff. Do they feed you a lot of steak and lobster on the set?
Well, I don't eat any fish.
You don't eat any fish?
I will eat anything else that's there. and the bad thing about it is they put out a table as big as this or bigger, and they just put stuff in it all day long, and you can just... I mean, you got to pull your head out of the feed trough or you sit there and catch yourself grazing all day long. I mean, they're really good to everybody. It's amazing. I miss it, but I had a great career. And
there seemed to be a lot of people in charge of stuff, around here when it was going on. Just a lot of different people that was in charge of a lot of different things.
Sure.
Right.
The first time that I took my wife Diane on the set, she went on the set. I had a part. I was playing Corporal Dykus on Diane. What was the name of that show? Into the West. And they hired me because, once again, I needed to fit in these cavalry clothes, but they needed to be really snug on me. And it's back to the Patriot. This outfit was so snug. I had to lay down on the bed, and it's like, but that's how I got the job. They wanted a heavy-set guy. Those clothes made me look really heavy-set. But, yeah, she went over there on the set, and I took her out there, and it was funny. She said, hey, look up there. She said, your name's on that chair. I said, yeah, that's where all the actors sit. And she said, how come you're not sitting in your chair? I said, I've never had a chair, in a director's chair. I said, and I've never had one with my name on it. I said, stuntmen don't sit underneath those. That's for the actors. She says, but you're an actor on this. And I said, well, I'm doing a little part, but I said, I'm a stuntman. But she goes, aren't you going to sit in it? I said, no, I want to sit here and look at it because I'll probably never get another one in my whole career. I told her, I said, why don't you go sit in it?
This list is long. Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Wow.
What do you remember about that show?
Was at Cheyenne in the Bulldogging, and I got a call to go to New York. And I told my boss, Terry Leonard, stunt coordinator, when I got my Screen Actors Guild call for, he says, where are you at, Bobby Mack? I said, oh, I'm up at Cheyenne. I said, I've already run my first one. I said, and I got a second one here today. He goes, can you get back to L.A. by, tomorrow morning? And I said, what's going on? And he said, well, I got a job for you up here in New York for Die Hard with a Vengeance. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. So when I run my second steer, he said, I need you to get up. I need you to not miss that flight. And I said, okay. So when I nodded my head, I rode right on by that steer, right on out the back gate, loaded my horse, and I booked him to California because that's a for sure day money. You know what I mean? Any way you look at it. So, yeah, I went all the way there. I threw all my dirty clothes in a bag, figured I'd get them clean in the laundry when I got there. And I'll never forget walking down the street. It's back when you could get on an airplane with your spurs. And
you know what? Just a few years ago, they were still allowing spurs on the airplane. Really? It's a loophole. It's a loophole. I think you could probably still wear your spurs on an airplane.
Really? Anyway, so I went and took that trailer home. And on the way home, I had 3 horses in there, and I blew a spindle on it, so I had to chain the axle up to the back axle.
Yeah.
And I still kept, and I made it. I made it home. I got me a sack of dirty clothes, and I went and caught that airplane to New York, and I worked on it for, I don't know, a month. I was back there in New York for about a month.
It was already a huge franchise, but ahead of time,
Yeah.
So you knew that was going to be a big movie when you got the call for Die Hard.
I played the janitor. I was out there at the very beginning of the movie. They had 2 armored cars sitting on the curb, and they blew the whole front of this building off. And I was out there in a janitor suit, and I was washing down the sidewalk. And just as they hollered action, I stepped right between those 2, and they blew them up. But they had them bull pricked with chains, so they could only go so high, and they would jerk them back down. Do you remember the scene when they blew it up?
They blew up a lot of stuff in that movie.
Yeah, well, they blew the whole front of that building off, and those armored cars were like, I don't know, 8 feet from front to back. When they blew them up, man, you couldn't hear nothing. And it was just a big cloud of smoke. And then when I seen it on film, I was like, I was right between those. I was right in the middle of those armored cars. You know what? I was like, whew, they were pretty close.
Old Bruce Willis, he ain't doing good.
Yeah, no, not good.
No, he's sure not.
Got a lot of issues.
That's sad. It's really sad. He's a great actor.
You ever show up on set and, you always hear about these wild, crazy actors, pulling benders and stuff. You ever show up on set and you see...
not as much.
See them come rolling in with lady under each arm, just gotten back from...
You know what? Back in the day when they did a lot of Westerns, I'm sure there was a lot of that. You used to be able to drink on the set back when I first got in the movie business. And
doctors used to smoke in their offices, I think.
Most of the people, that were on those sets, it's like they'd start drinking 9 o'clock. They had a big beer chest on the craft service truck, and they could drink beer. And them old Indians and them extras and stuff, that were dressed up as Indians and extras, they were real cowboys. Heck, they were drunk by the end of the day. They were pretty tipsy, I'll tell you. They were. I was like, man, they'd outlawed that pretty quick.
Sounds like some of these guys running these ranches around here.
When you think all the Westerns since back in the 20s and all the people with guns they shot, and as far as I know, nobody ever got hurt until that Alec Baldwin deal. Isn't that odd?
You know what? It's like I was telling Diana, the girl that was the armory and not craft service, anyway, she had 2 jobs, and I've been on a lot of shows and shot a lot of guns, but
there's been thousands of them shot.
Her dad was the armorer on Tombstone. He trained her, and I just can't believe that really happened. How do you get a live bullet, whatever, Yeah.
What a tragedy.
Yeah.
What a tragedy.
But, I've been in a lot of movies. I've shot a lot of guns, machine guns, and, I've worked around some really good people. And only one other guy that I was on the set that he was a cut-up. And it was called Masquerade. And the guy's name, I believe, was John Eric Hexum. And he had a television series, and he was always kidding around. He'd take a drink of wine, or he'd pour it in his ear and spit it out of his mouth. And he picked up a gun there, and it had a blank in it. And he put it up the side of his head, and he pulled the trigger, and it blew a hole in his head, and he died. That I do remember, and it's like I was like, I couldn't believe it happened,
Didn't something happen to Bruce Lee's son?
Yeah,
Didn't he get shot?
Yeah, in that movie, The Crow, I think.
The Crow.
I think.
I doubled a guy that worked on The Crow. His name was, God, I got a picture of it. What is that guy's name? He just passed away. Dang it. I can't remember his name.
He'll probably remember it right after we get done here.
I told you guys before we started this thing, I've been hit on the head a few times.
He goes all the way into, movies you've heard of just recently.
Right.
Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift. Did you have to go to Tokyo for that?
No, we did it downtown L.A. They just turned all the signs upside down. Terry Leonard, the same coordinator, I've been mentioning his name. Yeah, this guy ran everything. He could do anything. Back in the days when he did Wind and the Lion, doubled, what was his name? Oh, God, the great actor. Oh, man, Ben-Hur. He was in Ben-Hur.
Charlton Heston.
Yeah, Terry Leonard, he goes all the way back into those shows, man. It's like, he was crippled when I met him. You'd have never known it. I met him. He ran that 1941 with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. He ran that. I worked a lot of shows for Terry Leonard.
Did you get to know John Belushi or Dan Aykroyd?
No.
I saw he worked with Dan Aykroyd more than once.
Yeah, no, I never.
So the stuntman, they don't really get to mingle with the head guys. Here, when they were having this...
Well, you do when you're doubling. When you're doubling a guy like that, which I was just an indie stuntman. I was in the USO club doing all the fighting and in the backgrounds and stuff. But
when they were filming that movie here, they told everybody that you weren't allowed to make any kind of eye contact with Leo or Robert De Niro or any of them on set.
And what's really funny is I worked on Quick and the Dead with Sharon Stone, and Leo was there, and oh God, what was the guy that I just said his name to you earlier? Russell Crowe.
Yeah,
those guys were just getting started.
Gene Hackman was in that too.
I worked with all those guys, but Gene Hackman was already a great star, and so was Sharon Stone. But yeah, Leo and they were all there, and I didn't even know who they were when I was working with them. I didn't. Terry Leonard ran that one. He hired me to go on that.
Jimbo, you brought it up a minute ago that you do have a pretty close family connection with the McLaughlin family because of the old black horse.
Right.
Where did that black horse come from, and how did Don and his brother Don end up with him?
He came from the Hal Cooper Ranch out in Woodward, Oklahoma. I had a big ranch out there, and he tried to rope a little bit too. Hal did, I think, but he just bought him as a ranch horse, as a 4.5 or 5-year-old, and took him to Everett Shaw's house. He had some little light tie-down cattle, Shaw did, and they roped on him for.
I bet they wasn't that light.
Well, for back then they were light. And they wanted
600 probably.
Probably, but anyway, and they tied 10 or 15 steers on him there in about 2 weeks. Of course, he's already a well-broke ranch horse, and Jim took him to Guernsey, Wyoming, and won the first roping on him. He was almost a natural. And then Jim rode him throughout the 50s, was a world champion in 56. I think it was 1960, could have been 61. He actually sold him to Harry Lynn. And Harry Lynn turned around just real quick, didn't get along with him or something, and sold him to Don. And then Don, of course, the rest is history, rode him for 10, 15 years.
Well, and he won world championship right here in Pawhuska. And how did that happen? Because everyone that watches our podcast, they're familiar with the national finals. It's went from Dallas to L.A. to Oklahoma City, down to Las Vegas. But the steer roping, it's a PRCA event, same association, counts for their all around.
But they didn't have a big enough arena, at those other places. So that's why they had it stand alone at another location. And the first two were at Clayton, New Mexico. And then the next two were the next one was at Laramie, Wyoming in 61. And then 62, they went to Douglas, Wyoming. And then 63 and 64, it came to Pawhuska. And then 65 and 66, it was in Veneta. 67 and 68, it was in McAllister. 69 and 78, it was in Pecos, Texas. 71 and 72, it was in Pawhuska again. And then it went to Laramie, and it was at Laramie for a long time.
Man, you know them all, don't you, Jimbo?
That's just when I grew up. That's my wheelhouse.
Then it moved to Guthrie.
Yeah.
Then it moved to...
And I lost track of it.
Amarillo. Then it moved to Lovington, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Hobbs, actually.
Right.
And now it moved back to Guthrie, and now it's in Mulvane.
Did you say Amarillo?
I did.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did.
And that's at Mulvane. I was just up there Saturday at the casino, and it's a really neat place. You drop down and go into that big arena and where they have the steer roping finals. Big, nice casino, almost like a Vegas-style casino.
So Don, your brother, He won the world championship right here in Pawhuska, Oklahoma.
1963.
Riding Jimbo's grandpa's old horse.
Yeah.
Ain't that something?
Yep.
That's a pretty small world right there.
Yeah, it is.
It really
Sure
is.
It sure is.
Well,
that old black horse has been in that arena a lot of times.
I'll be
They
doggone.
had.
He had a home field advantage almost.
He did, didn't he?
Home field advantage, the horse did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I've got the saddle, 1963. I've got the number 1 back number from 1963. And I got the world's champion buckle. That was provided to me by my great sister-in-law, Sandy McLaughlin.
She is a great sister-in-law.
She's, I tell you what.
You and Don both married way above your head.
Well, you know what? My brother Tom told me it's the best thing that ever happened to him. And I know Diane's the best thing that ever happened to me. Anybody that would pick up on somebody that's goofy as I am from hitting on their head for 35 years and go, I think I'll marry you. I was like, I don't know about that. I mean, are you sure? I mean, I still get up in the mornings and I go, I can't believe I'm married to that
Kind of
girl.
made you wonder about her, didn't it? A
I
little
go,
bit.
what's she seeing me? I don't know. She's still around after 18 years.
Yep.
You never did get into why you did retire stunt. You told me back there in the back a while ago. Something on Iron Man 2. What happened?
Well, we did on the rehearsal on the day. Diane, I had to go down and do a rehearsal, and for my good buddy Tom Harper, stunt coordinator, second unit director, who now lives in Texas. He said, I need you to come down here and rehearse this thing so we make sure we get it right on the day we do it. And I said, okay. I said, well, let me put my dog away. He goes, what kind of dog you got? And I said, I got a Rottweiler. And he said, well, bring him with you. Let me see him. So Diane and I go down for this rehearsal, and we take the dog with us. And they didn't even have enough guys there to rehearse this. They had me, and he told me what was going to happen. Don Cheadle had on the suit, the Iron Man suit, and he says, are you guys with me? And we say, yeah, we're with you. Well, he says, get this suit off of me. So on the rehearsal, I got a screwdriver, and I'm down there like in the side of his leg, and it sparks. On the day it's supposed to spark, and they jerk me out of the scene. Well, while we were there rehearsing, my dog bit Tom, the coordinator. I said, I told you I didn't want to bring him. He said, oh, well, that's okay. But so he had Diane standing in for Don Cheadle as the Iron Man. So she was standing there, and they're supposed, just as I touch his leg, I'm supposed to be jerked all the way across the floor with what they call a cable and a ratchet and a vest. And so it was all good. And he said, we'll see you next week when we do it. And I said, okay. So on the day we did it, the director, he didn't like it. The director wasn't there when we rehearsed it. But on the day we were going to do it, he said, can you stand up and like you're taking that suit off of Don Cheadle, like up there around his neck? And I knew things were about to change then. I mean, it's like, so I'm not going to be jerked across the floor. I'm going to go straight up and down, okay? So we did it about 10 times, and I kept hitting. I had a mat, but it was like the gymnast, the mats they use in schools in the gym. And I don't think I ever hit the mat, but I tore a hole in my colon. And she was in school in Colorado. And anyways, it was I kept sitting in the jacuzzi, and I thought I was getting better. I'd feel good, and I'd get out. Well, what I didn't know that I had tore a hole in my colon, and I was leaking inside of myself. So,
Oh, my Lord.
So she said, you can't do this anymore. And I said, but that's all I know. I mean, that and being a cowboy, and I'm getting too old to be a cowboy. And she said, you'll always be a cowboy. I said, you know what I mean, a rodeo cowboy. And she said, well, I think you should retire. And I got to thinking about it, and the Westerns had moved on. There wasn't a whole lot of work going on. And they shoot all these Westerns, like you said, in Pawhuska. They go, Louisiana, Atlanta. And I told her, I said, I think I'm going to see if I can retire and go 100% totally disabled. And sure enough, I went before a judge, and he made me 100% totally disabled so I can spend all this time with my lovely wife, Diane. So I am definitely retired. But she said, you can't do this. I mean, you've been hurt so much. She worked in an orthopedic clinic when I met her, and I'd been there numerous times. And she said, you've had 9 surgeries to your shoulder. You broke your back, your neck, you punctured your lungs. And I got to thinking about that, and that's a lot. But it was such a fun job. I love my job. I love the people I worked with. But the one who loved me the most would be her, because she said, "You need to quit all this bullshit." And I said, "You're right." So I retired.
It is kind of wild. Hollywood has moved, it seems like, to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Atlanta, Georgia. That's where Hollywood's pretty much based out of anymore.
Well, I just know they don't shoot hardly. There's a couple of television series. A couple of my buddies run a couple of them there. One is SWAT, and that'd be Lance Gilbert. And then there's another one, David. God, what is David's last name? Excuse me. Thank you, honey. David Rowden. He runs the Rookies. So there's a couple things still out there in L.A., but everything's moved to, well, it had moved to New Mexico and they're still doing some stuff over there. But
I saw they built some major, like 3 studios are out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Hollywood's over with. I mean, as far as shooting the big feature movies, they don't do any of it.
Are those big studios still out there like United?
Oh, yeah. They're still sitting there.
I mean, but they're just empty and not being used?
Well, they tore down the set of Bonanza. I took Diane over there to Paramount, and I told her, I said, I always loved that big rock in the background when you'd see the Cartwrights riding in. You always see that rock. And I found out that rock, I was just crushed. That rock was made out of fiberglass and square tube. And all these years as a kid watching it growing up, I just loved that big rock in the background. And I showed her, I said, I've been crushed ever since I found out that rock was made out of fiberglass and square tube. But they've tore all those sets down out there on Paramount. I think they still have the one, they call it the back lot. It's like a couple blocks from Warner Brothers. It's where they shot the Lone Riders. Shows like that, old westerns.
I saw somebody who went through the Gunsmoke set when Gunsmoke was still being filmed. He got to take a tour of the set, and he walked back behind, and there was Gilligan's Island Lagoon.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He thought I never could watch either one of them shows again the same.
Yeah, no, they shot it all right there on the back lot.
Yeah.
They didn't film Bonanza up there in Reno?
They did some of it.
Oh, okay.
They built the real Ponderosa up there.
Okay.
I don't know if it's still open or not now, but Lauren, he's been gone since what, 80 something, 70, about 82 or 83, I think. Because I got in 76.
That show never was the same after Hoss died, was it?
No, it sure wasn't.
No, he was definitely a fan favorite, old Haas was.
Oh, yeah. But we still get to watch them reruns. I mean, Diane says I know every show word by word.
Did you ever get it? Yeah, it's still a great show. It really is. Did you ever get to meet old Dan Blocker? Get to know him?
I did not. Michael Landon, now, he's the one that got me in the movie business. My brother Lee called him one night. Next thing I know, I was on Little House on the Prairie, working on Little House as an extra.
Ain't that something?
Yeah, and I was happy with that. And then stunts, that just came by me riding the bull and the Hulk, and it's just.
Did you meet old Merlin Olsen?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Nice fella.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Seemed
fella.
like a nice guy.
Yeah, big nice fella.
Big football
guy.
player. Played for the Rams,
Nice.
Cody.
I'm gonna tell you what, that Michael Landon he treated me, and I'm sure it was from my brother being on Bonanza but he treated me like I was family. I played a drunk on a train car with him, and I kept leaning over against him, and he kept pushing me away, and I'd lean back, and so that was my claim with. But my brother Lee's got a letter somewhere from Michael Landon in NBC, and I can't find that letter. And his wife's given me just about everything that he had picture wise, and I don't know. My brother Lee stuck that letter somewhere, but it was a cool letter. It says, "Michael Landon, we need young cowboys on Little House on the Prairie." Heck, I was in. I was the next day. He could have done it any time, but he would rather keep me on that ranch working.
Yeah, he's trying to keep you there working.
Sure. He knew when I got started, I would never be. But I did all my work early in the morning. And, the thing about L.A. is when I got in the movie business, I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I didn't know how to get on them freeways. I didn't know how to drive to them. I mean, they handed me a Thomas guide, and I didn't even know how to read that. What the heck's a Thomas guide? It's a map of L.A., and that's how and I thought, you know what? Some days I'd have to leave 3 or 4 hours ahead of time of my call time because I didn't know where it was. And I learned it pretty quick, though, because you sure can't be late on them movie jobs. They'll fire your ass.
What's it like sitting around there all day? Do you just, is it a lot of hurry up and waiting, or what?
Oh, yeah, a lot of hurry up and wait, and the deal was when I got in that you're supposed to work extra for 3 years if you were going to try to be a stuntman, which I worked extra for 3 years and tried to learn everything I could as far as, camera sides, camera speed, and the lenses, and, like camera right is the left side of the camera. You know, just there's a lot of stuff to learn. And my brother Lee said, now don't go to sleep when you get there. He said, because that's what a lot of extras do. They just go and sleep until they call them to make them cross here. He said, stay behind the camera. And he said, try to learn something. You know, I learned a lot. I really did. So I guess I was prepared to go to work as a stuntman. It worked out for me, you know.
You ever done a stunt and before you did it, you're like, I don't know if I should be doing this or not. And then you do it, and the director says, we need another take of that.
Well, that was on Tombstone when I did that back over. Terry Leonard, you know, after I did it, you know, he said it was the best back over he's ever seen. He said, I got a picture of that in my office. And I said, I don't know, Leonard. I said, what? When you hollered out, Bobby Mack, you got another one in you? And I thought, is he kidding me? You got to be kidding me. All I seen was clouds and dirt as I went over. I seen the clouds and then I seen the dirt. And it's like, I knew I made it because my head was in the horse's butt, you know, and then it went down to the ground. But he said, you got another one in you? And I was like, oh, man, he's got to be kidding me. I'm hurt. I'm bleeding out the forehead. And he said, no, I'm just kidding you, Bobby Mack. He said, that was great. You don't have to do another one. And, of course, I was entered at rodeos for the next, you know, after that I came home. Then I went back, you know. But I couldn't wear my cowboy hat down around. I had to wear it on the back of my head like that because I was skipping my forehead all up. But yeah, no, I've done some stuff just like I told you about the Three Amigos. When I looked down between my arm, and I fell through as I was crawling up to the church steeple to do the high fall. I stepped through that. It was all fake. It was just a facade, you know. And that's like I run a foot down all the way up to my hip, and I was like, whew, man, that's scary. And I told him, I said, I've never done a high fall that high. I'd done, you know, some with Billy Burton. He was teaching us, but that was a long ways up there, my friend. Looked like a can of Copenhagen when I looked down at it. It got bigger as I got to it, but, you know, just to go off of there backwards and supposed to be knocked out, you couldn't, you know, you had to look at it and still act it out like you were knocked out, you know. Yeah, there's been quite a few of those where you go, oh, man, I don't know about this. We'll see. Yeah.
If you were putting together a Mount Rushmore stuntman, who would you put on it, Bobby? Need 4 names.
The guys that I worked with?
Well, it doesn't have to be. Just,
no, but I'm just
had
saying,
the most influence on the business
and
or
how
anything.
many guys are we talking about?
4.
Just 4. Maybe Yakima.
Okay, it would be Billy Burton, Terry Leonard, Frank Orsatti, and Gary McLaughin. Those guys would be my Mount Rushmore.
Nice.
Yep. And Billy Burton's still alive and well today. Terry Leonard is still alive and well today. They're both retired. Gary McLaughin, he passed away. And he was a lot of fun to work with, over the top, crashing the truck through the gates. He was called the whiz kid, man. He could do it all. And then, yeah, man.
You know, one of my favorite shows were growing up, Jimbo? The Fall Guy.
Yeah.
Me and my cousin used to play. I'd book stunts for him, and when I was a manager, and then he'd do the actual stunts. My cousin. Right. So
I worked on the Fall Guy.
Did you?
Oh yeah, I went over there. Mickey Gilbert, the guy was Kid Gilbert, the calf roper. I told you the story about my brother Don and him roping at the farm. He ran the Fall Guy, and he doubled Lee Majors. Plus, he also doubled Robert River. But he ran that series, and I doubled a guy by the name of Taylor Locker. He was a bit player. And I remember going over there. It's like, that was a cool deal to get to work on the Fall Guy and be a stuntman in Hollywood. I never thought I'd be able to work on it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Taylor Locker got a part on it, and I was his stuntman, so he recommended me, and I went over there. And it's like, those guys were top-notch stuntmen. Those Gilberts, man, I'm telling you, they were top-notch. Anyways, I went through three breakaway windows, and Mickey was telling me, he said, now Lee likes to do his own fights, so he said, basically, don't hit Lee. And I said, no, sir. But I did a high fall out of a window, and Mickey was driving by in a truck, and I had to go to the bed of the truck. And that was one of those, oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
I went out blind, you know, doubling Taylor Locker into the bed of this pickup. But I was over there. I went through like 5 or 6 breakaway windows that day, and doubling Taylor Locker with Lee Majors doing a fight. And, yeah, you know, and my brother Gene and Lee, they worked on Big Valley, you know. So pretty much they look at you and they go, "Oh, are you any kin to the McLaughlin?" And they go, "Yeah, matter of fact, I am." But yeah, I worked on The Fall Guy. That was a good show. I got paid a lot of money from Mickey Gilbert.
Did you ever get familiar with old Tom Selleck any?
No, I never worked with Tom Selleck. He was always down there.
Just figured they might have ran in some of the same circles for some reason.
You know, I met him. You know, he was at Walter Scott's. They were roping down there, and he was riding down there one day and swinging a rope. But you know, James Caan, I love James Caan.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you knew James Caan.
He was the best, man. He was the best. And then I worked on American Outlaws with his son Scotty Caan there in Fort Worth, or down around Austin. But, you know, I've worked on a lot of stuff, as you can see. But isn't that on there, Cody, the American Outlaws?
It is. It is.
Damn.
You know, I saw a picture the other day of Patrick Swayze riding a gray horse somewhere. He had a rope on a saddle horn and a pigging string around his neck.
That was at my brother Gene's house.
Okay.
Gene taught Patrick.
Did he tie steers or did he tie calves?
Calves.
Okay.
He calf roped, but my brother Gene taught him. And then Clifford doubled him. You know, my nephew Clifford, Gene's boy, he doubled Patrick all the way up. Clifford just did a thing, and I just happened to see it turning. You know, I was surfing on the TV, and yeah, I know Patrick. I worked on his first series. It was called The Renegades out of Paramount, and I said, "Man, you look familiar." When he it was, I remember when he signed the contract, he went and bought him a DeLorean.
Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah,
those are cool. The doors open like that.
Yeah, I worked with Patrick, but yeah, Patrick, he roped. He was an athlete. He could do anything Patrick Swayze could.
I never really heard of him roping, but when I saw that picture, I'm like, wow. He must have roped a little.
So when we did Wild Wild West with Will Smith and I can't remember the other actor's name, but we did Wild Wild West and we did it in New Mexico. Patrick bought a big ranch over there, like 1,700 acres, whatever. And Clifford, my nephew, was on Wild Wild West along with me. And he said, "Hey," he said, "you want to go with me this weekend?" I said, "Well, we only get Sunday off." And he said, "I'm going to go over to Patrick's." He said, "Patrick bought a big ranch over, and he told me to bring, and I won't tell you the nickname he called me, but anyways, he called me Pencil. Anyway, so he said he told me to bring Pencil over there, and I said, "Oh, well, yeah, I'd love to go." So Clifford, myself, and Patrick were on quads, and man, I mean, the guy could do anything. He was so talented. I mean, he was from Texas, you know. And Gene, my brother Gene, and his mother, they were really good friends. So when Patrick came to California, he hung out there with us. Him and Johnny Crawford. Man, there was a lot of movie stars that went to my brother Gene's. But all the real cowboys lived in Fort Collins. That'd be my brother Don.
For sure. Whew. What a historic rodeo. And
you guys are about to wear me out. I'm almost forgot what I've talked about already.
That's all right. You can go back and listen to it.
Hey, we can do another one next week if I'm in town.
For sure. For sure. I tell you what, just his family and his stuntman career, I mean, just an amazing, amazing family, really.
It really is.
I'm pretty blessed.
Pretty small world.
Blessed.
I didn't know one of his brothers, he doubled Jackie Gleason.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, no.
Ain't that something?
Smokey and the Bandit 3.
Smokey and the Bandit.
And he couldn't swim. And I said, "Little brother." I called him little brother. He said, "I'm not your little brother. I'm your big brother." But anyways, that was a joke because he was such a big guy. But yeah, he said, "I'm over here riding on this boat, doubling Jackie Gleason." He said, "You know, I can't swim. You know that, right?" And I said, "Well, did you tell Everett Creech?" That was the stunt coordinator. He said, "I told him I couldn't swim." He said, "Well, you're not going to get out of the boat. When you get out of the boat, you'll be up on shore." And he said, "But the first take," he said, "I was so big." He said, "I broke that seat plumb off in that front." He said, "I said, you can kind of see it in the movie before they cut away from it." But he said, "You know, there's monkeys climbing around these trees and they're missing arms and legs." And he said, "Everett told me it was from the alligators." And he said, "Well, I sure didn't want to go in the water then." He said, "Can't swim and alligators are going to eat me." And he said, "And there was a lot here to eat too." He said, "You know, I weigh 450. I said, "Yeah, don't get out of the boat, whatever you do."
Holy moly. Ain't that something?
Yeah.
And that's the same brother that got punched by John Wayne, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
On McClintock.
The hell I won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hell, yeah, that was him.
Holy. Did you ever get to see any of your brothers do any trick roping in their later years?
Are you kidding me? Brother Don, you know, Gene took over basically the trick roping, but Don's nickname was Tricky, so it's got to tell you something. And no, Don showed me he could trick. Don, he never even did it after. I mean, he could pick up a rope up and just do it like it was nothing to it. You know?
I've seen him, Cody figure eight and just doing the figure eight steer's horn, on a bale of hay, just so easy,
So when Brother Gene got inducted into the Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame the same day that Don did, but Mike, Don's boy, was there, and Clifford, Gene's boy, was there, and I was there, and then Mike McLaughlin's son, Cade McLaughlin. Anyways, we were all there, and they wanted to see us all do a trick. And I'm like, I never really studied it, you know what I mean? But I could do the flat loop. I could jump in and out, and they had all four of us trick roping at the same time. It was pretty cool,
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, but I was only doing the flat loop. Those guys were doing the butterflies and the overs. And Brother Gene, he could rope. I mean, he could really trick rope. I got a video of him on my phone just before he passed away.
Who you think the best trick roper ever was?
Oh, come on, I'm going to be partial. I'm going to say my brother Gene and Don.
Might have been.
I don't know, man.
But they used to have regular events at the rodeo. It was a big deal back then.
I think my brother Don judged one of those events. Didn't he, Sandy? I think Brother Don. And Brother Gene was mad at him because he won second. He said, brother, he kept messing up. He kept messing his tricks up. He said he had to win second. And then Gene was mad at Don because he didn't win first. And I was like, and Don said, well, he messed up 2 or 3 tricks and the other fellow didn't.
Did you ever get to know Monty Montana, or is he before you?
No, I met him, and but he was up in years, but I did meet him, and he lived not too far from us. We live in Palmdale, and he's just right down the road there, or he was right down there in Aquadulce. Yeah, man, it's really hard to believe that where I come from and where I ended up.
What a life! What a colorful life!
I'm a blessed man to know so many famous people and good people, good guys. Sam Elliott's one of the good guys. I really like Sam Elliott and Buck Taylor. I've done a couple westerns with them.
Yeah, Elliott, that's a name right there. That's one of the best cowboy actors there ever.
I think Don Decker taught him how to ride, didn't he?
Yeah, that's what he said anyway.
Flamingos.
He probably knows Don Decker. He hangs out at Jimmy Smith's house every now and then.
I think I have met that gentleman. I think I sure have.
Yeah.
Big shout out to my buddy Jimmy Smith from Denton, Texas.
Denton, America.
Yeah. Denton, America.
He's one of our favorite people.
I'm going to tell you what. I couldn't win nothing in the bulldogging in the high school rodeos, and his dad, he said, go over and tell Jimmy to let you on that horse. And I made the finals, and Jimmy let me ride his horse all through high school. But, yeah, Jimmy's a good friend. Good friend. Goes 100 miles an hour, don't you, Jimmy?
110.
110.
Did you ever get familiar with old Benny Binion?
Never met him.
Never met him?
Never met him.
Really? I thought that you guys would know each other for some reason.
It's like, well, actually, I never went to the finals just to go up and watch it. First time I ever went, my brother Don called me, and he said, little brother, he said, you want to come to the finals? He said, I got some tickets up here. He said, how far are you away? You were there, Sandy. I said, well, I'm about 3 hours and 15 minutes away. He said, well, can you make it up here? He said, I got some pretty good seats. Pretty good seats. I mean, being the champ you are, they ought to be great. Well, they were. They were right behind the roping box. They were perfect tickets. But, yeah, I didn't go up there much. And then, of course, I heard Alan was his bodyguard, Alan Keller, but I never met him. I sure would have liked to. He did a lot for rodeo. I know that. A lot for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
What all did your brother win? I know he steer roping world champion, calf roping world champion.
Yeah, he won the world championship in 1951, 52, 53, 54. And then he came back and won it again in 57, the year I was born, the year our dad died, and the year he won the world. And I got that buckle. Matter of fact, I got them all thanks to my sister-in-law, Sandy.
We just don't want to forget Don McLaughlin. I don't want all these people that's never heard of him to forget him. I highly encourage you to look up some of the history on this man, because he's one of the, if not one of the greatest rodeo cowboys to ever live.
He's an 8-time world champion
and then
roper.
After the calf roping, in 57, then he won the steer roping in 60, and then he came back and won it in 63, and then his final
70 or 71.
Was 70.
Yeah. There's only been 2 ropers that I know of that's won more world championships than that. And that was Trevor and Guy Allen, as far as ropers go.
I think a lot of guys have forgotten about my brother Don, but he was a great roper. And I'm here to let you know that we're never going to forget him. And that's why I'm here with you guys. I want to put some of his stuff in your museum here.
Yeah, everyone come in. We're going to be setting up a new display of Don. He's won world championships right here in Pawhuska. We have the saddle, the buckle.
Won the finals here, you know.
Yep. So we're going to be putting up a nice display to Don. And
Cody, I remember he came here to Pawhuska so much, and he was a Catholic, and I was Catholic, and I was actually an altar boy. And I remember one time we were in the little, Mass hadn't started yet, and we were walking in, and we were in the little side deal with Father Gavin, and in walked Don and Harry Lynn, and Don stuck his head in there and shook hands with Father, and Father, well, hi, Don. Hey, they knew each other. You know, that's how much he'd come to Pawhuska, and since he's Catholic and was always going to Mass here, they actually knew each other.
Right.
And he saw me, I was just a little kid. He said, well, that looks like a Snively right there. And I told him who I was, you know. And I never will forget that the priest knew Don and Don knew him, you know, by name.
That's something else, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was quite the champion. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, it's funny, I asked him, because I'd never seen him trick rope because I was only 6 months old, and I wasn't even born when they started. But, you know, a story about my brother Lee, you know, my dad tried to get them as an act together, the three of them. So I've got pictures of my brother Lee, who never roped, but he was dressed up just like Don and Jean, and he was trick roping. So all three of my brothers trick roped. But Lee used to tell me, he said, Dad would, you know, I hated to practice. He said, Dad put me in that room, locked me in there with the trick rope. And he said, and I like to play balls and jacks. And he said, I had a little trap in that room. And he said, and I would play balls and jacks. And he said, and then I'd hear our dad coming down the hallway. And he said, I'd put them balls and jacks back in the bottom of the floor there. And he said, and I'd pick up that trick rope and go trick rope. He said, I never wanted to trick rope. I wanted to play football. So, and that's what he did. He played Hardin-Simmons and went to Lake Worth High School. But yeah, he was a character, my brother Lee. Yeah, he didn't like that. He could trick rope, but he didn't like to do it.
you know, you told me that they sent you to Don's to learn how to rope. What's a couple of lessons that stuck with you till this day that he taught you?
Well, when I got there was no calves anywhere. I'm like, you know, and I'm not asking any questions because my brother Lee had already told me now, your brother Don's all business. Okay. So the next morning I wake up and there's 3 truckloads of black baldies from Florida, semi-truckloads of these calves. So what I learned from Brother Don is how to doctor a calf, how to get one up when they were dying, straight to their feet. And I'm like, I learned so much in 2 weeks from him. It's like, and I never got the rope in the school, but I got to run down the rope and flank and tie all those calves that were on that truck. And then he would sell something, and whatever. Right after he used all those fresh cattle for his roping schools. He had a 300 by 300 arena, and then he had like a, 50 foot wide and 125 foot long that he trained them horses in. And he could train them. I mean, I learned so much stuff from him. I don't know. He kind of said, you know, you kind of got that knack, brother. He said, you know, you can train a horse. And I told you earlier about that horse running off down the arena with his mouth wide open, that black horse of mine. And Don says, I don't know about that horse, little brother. He said, he's running down the arena with his mouth wide open. He said, here's what you do. He said, when you go home and you start riding that little horse and haul him everywhere, he said, because he can run. He could probably run faster if he had his mouth shut. So he showed me a trick about putting a little piece of wire underneath and right across their nose. And he said, no, don't cut their hair off. But he said, so when they open that mouth up, he said, they'll feel that piece of wire. And he said, they won't open it no more. And I'll be doggone if it didn't work. I mean, it worked like it was like unbelievable. I'd only had to do it, I don't know, maybe a month, and that horse never opened his mouth again. That's one thing I learned from him. I learned how to rope. I mean, Brother Don, when he did a tie on a calf, I mean, he made sure that it was tight. Brother Gene, he'd slap it through there, and he said, you look like your brother Gene tying that calf. And I said, well, I haven't been taught by nobody but my brother Gene. And he said, well, I'm going to show you how to do it the real way. But yeah, I run down that rope, and I tied, and I flanked, and they cut, and we branded, and it's like, I was wore out before the school ever started, but I sure learned how to run down the rope and flank one and tie him.
Every one of them off them 3 semi-loads, y'all ran down the rope, flanked and tied.
Sure. And the guys at the school, and Grover Tompkins was there. He would cut them, and I'd run down the rope and tie them, and he'd cut them, and then I think Don would brand them, but we had it going on. And I mean, 3 triple-decker semis with black baldies. I didn't even know what a black baldy was. I was just a kid. Well, they were wild son of a guns, I'm going to tell you what. And we were tying them down for the kids for the school.
Grover was a pretty good cowboy. He made the finals once.
He did?
Yeah, sure did. He one of those times at Pecos.
Yeah, I seen his picture on Facebook.
Yeah, he was an ex-Green Beret. He was quite a character.
I know that.
Yeah.
There's some stories I could tell you, but I'd rather not. Yeah, he was definitely a Green Beret. Let's just put it this way. When you were out with Grover and working with Grover, you couldn't go back and get a drink of water at the house. You had to drink out of the water trough or the water hole, whatever was out there. You didn't go back and drink. You drink right here.
They said he bit a mouse's head off one time.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Just to scare the girls at the roping school.
Just to show them they could.
Oh, yeah.
Sound like Ozzy Osbourne biting that bat's head off that time.
I mean, he didn't do it all the time, but, it's like he would take his hand and push the water away like that, and then, it's like, I just did it because he did it, because I was thinking maybe my brother Don did it. Brother Don never drank out of no horse trough, I guarantee you. Not while I was around. But he was.
He ended up with that old black horse's ashes. And,
I knew that.
And, we didn't have the museum, didn't have any use for them. And he'd offered them, asked Joe one time if he thought we wanted them just because of the family connection, and at that time we didn't, but then when you started the museum, well, we got thinking that'd be good here in the museum, maybe, with a picture of Don, Jim, but he'd already buried them.
Sandy gave that away to Grover, and he took it over to Nebraska. And like you were saying earlier, Cody, he was supposed to bury it, but he didn't bury it until maybe here recently. But
he finally buried them because we thought they'd look good here, Bring no horse back home.
I mean, my brother, he talked a lot about that horse.
Well, he loved him. I mean, just babied him, And,
he loved his name.
Yeah. But he, I think the last years or so, he might have spent there at the Fort Collins Veterinary School or something. They really took care of him,
Was it Dr. Voss? Yeah, and Brother Don was good friends with Dr. Voss. Yeah. But when I went in my Brother Don's trophy room for the first time, he had a step that walked down, and from the right side all the way around, there was saddles, and his back numbers were up on the wall. It was like a Cowboy Hall of Fame. And I thought, man, my brother was a hell of a cowboy. And it's like, and then you go up, and there's the recliner, the big screen TV. There was the pool table, because they had to have a pool table. Everybody, all them cowboys played. Don loved to play pool. And then up that wall was saddles, and then he'd come to this table. And I never asked Big Brother what was underneath that green tarp or that green felt. And one day he showed me, and he showed me the black horse, he was entombed in glass in a baby casket of ashes. And he said, little brother, a lot of people would think this is morbid. He said, but he bought this place we're standing on. And I said, I always wondered what was underneath there, but I didn't want to ask brother, what's underneath there. But
if you'd have took, because Jim won a lot on him in the 50s, and then Don rode him all through the 60s, into the 70s, won a world title on him in 1970.
Yeah.
If you'd have took the money that horse had won on him in today's dollars, it might have been the most money ever won on a steer horse.
That was a tough horse. I mean, I think that's the horse when they fell that, it was a OS rope.
Pecos.
Was it Pecos?
No, you're right, Post-Texas.
Yeah, was it that OS? But anyway,
it was, you're right.
Broke his neck. Yeah.
Yeah, hurt Don, yeah.
Yep.
They said he followed him steer down a long way, and the horse was getting old, and he just run out of air, and because he'd either missed him the first loop or something, but he was a long way down the arena, and the horse kind of run out of air, and he turned off and just jerked him down.
That's a great event. It's too bad they don't do it in every state. But, it's good watching. Seeing Ole Smith back there in Guthrie when he won the World Championship there, when he won the
timed event?
The timed event there, yeah. It's just, I always thought about doing it, but if I was going to learn, I wanted to learn from Don. But, I lived in California.
Well, you would have moved off from California, and who knows what your life would have turned into. You started roping steers. Worse
It
than
went,
any
it
kind of
went
drug.
downhill, wasn't it?
Maybe
It's worse than
jail,
any
I
kind of
don't know.
drug.
You never know. Hey, I might have been in jail. You never know. You know. I've been blessed though. I've had brothers to guide me in the right direction. And now I've got a good wife that's guiding me everywhere I go. She's my co-pilot.
Yep.
What do you guys do? No.
Well-
Just travel around, visit friends.
Yeah, we traded in that
Sell
that
some
horse
dogs?
trailer. Yeah, we traded in that horse trailer for a mobile trailer, and it's that's the dogs trailer. They own the trailer. There's 4 corgis in it. She raises corgi dogs. And Sandy welcomes them when we go to her house, and so I figure that's a pretty good deal. Brother Don, he didn't really care for dogs, but I found one on the way to his house, going to go to Denver, and I said, "Hey, Brother Don, you got a cage I can put this dog in?" He goes, "You got a dog?" And I knew he didn't like dogs up there at the place, because roping and dogs don't get along if they're not trained just right.
A lot of times they don't.
Yeah, so I pulled over in this rest stop, and there was this dog sitting out there up there on Interstate 70, and I hollered at him, and he jumped up in the back of the truck, and I just took him on to Don's. And I think Don got attached to that dog because when I left there, I said, Don says, you ought to name him Roadway. You found him up there on the road. Just call him old Roadway. And when I left, he said, hey, you going to leave that dog here or are you taking him with you? I said, you want him? He said, I'll just leave him here. And so they kept that dog. I found him on the road. He named him Roadway.
Save that dog's life. Woo. Well, Jimbo, you got anything else for him today?
No, I don't guess, man. That's been a good podcast, though.
It has. Covered a lot of ground.
Covered a lot of ground.
Yes, sir.
From roping
With
to
Die Hard
stuntman.
to Vengeance to 1936 world champion junior trick ropers.
Yes.
So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Made a
Well, I
pretty good
appreciate you
circle.
guys inviting me to come up, and it's been a year and a half in the making, but we made it. Never too late.
that's right.
We appreciate you making the trip up here.
It was quite far up here, let me just
Yeah.
tell you, from California to Fort Worth up here.
Yeah.
My wife's retired now, though, so
Right.
I put it in her head that she needs to go, and so I get to go. But,
Right.
Well, howdy, that Fort Worth's changed since you were a kid, hadn't it?
wow,
It's changed in the last 15 years quite a bit.
I grew up, on Exchange in Maine, and it's just unbelievable. It's wow, the things that are down there. I used to sell, believe this or not, back when I was a kid, I used to sell popcorn and Cokes down at the wrestling matches down there at Northside.
No kidding.
Yeah, oh yeah. I used to go down and work, and
Northside, not everyone's real familiar with what that is. What is Northside?
it's a Cowtown
It's
Coliseum.
Cowtown, right? Yeah.
It's one of the oldest rodeo arenas. It was like the first back
I think
in
it's the
day.
first indoor rodeo arena,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah, they used to have wrestling matches there on Monday night, and I'd ride a bus over there, get free tickets, go to the wrestling matches, and I would get them to hire me, sell them Coke, ice cold drinks, and popcorn.
Did you have to walk around in the stands?
Yeah, but I didn't do very good. Yeah, I didn't do very good because I watched the wrestling, and the Cokes got slushy, and the ice got melted. And
You're
yeah, I
talking
didn't-
professional wrestling, right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Off the top rope?
oh
Yeah.
yeah, off the top rope. You got
Gorgeous George and all those guys.
Fritz Von Erich and his son.
Yeah, those Von
Yeah,
Erichs,
those
they were
Von
big.
Erichs, they were Texans down
Wahoo
there. wasn't
McDaniels, wore the head. Yeah, it was
they? He was supposedly from Pawhuska.
Wahoo McDaniels.
Wasn't he in his,
Could be.
wasn't he an Indian?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Fighter?
he's Indian. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I think originally, well, he wasn't from here, but he claimed to be from here in his wrestling matches. Yeah, we got some folks coming in. You can go back there if you want. Yeah. Folks coming in the museum. We're here in the lobby of the museum today.
Yeah.
Well, we sure appreciate you coming on.
Boys, I can't thank you. enough
Holy
for
moly,
having
I've had
us.
a great time today.
And we still got a couple days left before we leave. What else are we going to do? We'll find something to do.
There's all kind of stuff to do in Pawhuska.
Yeah,
It's
you
limitless.
You got this jewelry. We got to go look at the jewelry.
We're going to go check out the jewelry. We got the Pioneer Woman down the street.
Oh man, you should have never said that. There's where all the money will be
We have
spent
her.
right there.
You can eat breakfast, lunch, dinner there, and then she has a pizza place across the street of her there, and an ice cream place. Pioneer Woman, they'll take care of everything you need around.
Well, don't you have a jewelry shop here in town, or Flamingo, the Buck and Flamingo, or
Yeah.
something?
Largest turquoise jewelry shop in the whole state.
I can't wait to see that. How about you, Jimbo? You been over there too?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times.
I keep his wallet empty over there,
Right.
buying stuff for Leslie.
If he starts being the historian with flamingos and stuff, I'm gonna start worrying about him.
Well, Buck and Flamingo, we have one daughter that's a ballerina and one daughter that's a cowgirl. So
Okay.
came up with the Buck and Flamingo.
There you go. Perfect.
there you go. That's how we came up with it.
Well, guys, thanks again for having me. I appreciate it, and look forward to coming back again.
Yep, everyone get up here. See his brother Don's display we're going to be having in here, and we sure appreciate him leaving it here for everybody to see, and we'll take good care of it till they need it back.
You bet.
Sounds good to me.
All right, everyone. This has been one for the books. It's been a great podcast today. Thanks for listening. Come to the museum. Come to the Buck and Flamingo. Come to Saucy Calf. Go to the Pioneer Women's too.
Yeah,
Get over here to Pasca.
Just
Heck
come
of a
Pasca.
place to come, I'll tell you that.
That's right.
A lot of history here.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.
Later.